كرم سلام كمي تخونو خمي اللخم. Here you go. My goodness. يا أحواتكم تلمود حبشة education مسيكم الله تواليدنا ايبادنا قلنا ريدلو دحري 10 دقائق دحري 10 دقائق تاوساني ورقر هابن انت اخاقات منا زغل لهم عنتي ازي اني سلسة عمد الساقية الناس نبري مخانون اي ماركت كلهم تفلتوهم. So after 10 minutes to report especially it is summary report is the most important. Let me get ready this phone guys because live اللهن دي اللهن بزي از فلت مالت share ناتي. Okay. All right. So far 10 دقائق زلهنا تصنحين ايش تكني So screen let's get it as entry. دحر 10 دا ريبورت زي رينا. Let's see that زي ريفرش قبرنا كيدنا سبتمبر 10/7/18 مالت فدرال كلتا معلتي اخيبا غير محوات 2 days اخيبا نيروم سولو معنتي امتو وسانه وسنلا دحري almost 9 minutes دحري 9 دقائق كمصيوم ابزي اخت مصانا انت اخت مصانا تا تريدلهم تا projection materials زي انا هنركب تا كونفرنس ساعتها most important so ابزي اخت مصانا እንታይ ወሲኖም ዘይኮነ እንታይ ክብሉ እዮም ኣብኡ እንታይ ክምፅሉና እዮም ነዚ ዓመት ሙሉእ ወይ ከዓ ን2025 እንታይ እዮም ክብሉ እቲ ቀንዲ ኣገዳስን መሰረታውን ማለት እዩ so እዚ እንዳርኣና ማርኬትና ከንታይ ክቀየር ይኽእል ወይ ከዓ እንታይ ከምፃልና ይኽእል ንዝብል ሕቶ ከዓ ክንምልስ ኢና ማለት እዩ so ብዚኣና ክንፅበ in the meantime let's get it 10 minutes ኣለና እንታይ ይመስል let's go with it yeah stock is not happy a little bit ማለት ቁርብ ራእይዎ ትሪኦ ኣለኹም S&P is going up almost 0.05 up ጌራ ኣላ ሕጂ ራእይዎ ሕዚ ሎ ይዛ ነጥብ እዚኣ S&P it's going up like 0.05% up ጌራ ኣላ so ድሕሪ report እንታይ ንኸይድ ማለት down is 0.00 it's almost nothing Nasdaq is 0.06 so reportና ክመፅእ federal stock exchange trader well ኣብዚ እንታይ ከጋጥም ይኽእል ይመስለኩም ኣሕዋት ቢግ ትሬድ ከጋጥመና ይኽእል እዩ እንታይ እዚ ዘለኹ ሴል ክህሉ ይኽእል እዩ ብሕልፊ ፅቡቕ ሪፖርት እንድሕር ከይዱ ሴል ክህሉ ይኽእሉ okay crypto is about 6154.33 bonds yeah USA treasury bond is about USA I just want to note this 3.685% okay እዚ ዳውን ክኾን ኣለዎ okay that is the most important ካልእ ሓፈሻዊ እንድሕር ሲንግል ስታክ ከይድ ኮይና ተስላ is about ንዓ ጥራሕ ክንርኢ ንኽእልና 230.31% so ፅቡቕ ሪፖርት እንድሕር መፅኡ እንታይ ከጋጥም ይኽእል እዩ if it is good ኮይኑ 50 ተቆሪፆም እንደገና ኣብቲ ኮንፈረንስና እቲ ንሪኦ ሪፖርት እውን ኣብዚኣ ትመፅእውን እንድሕር ፅቡቕ ኮይኑ maybe መክሰብ ክወፅእ ይኽእል ይሕዋት ማርኬትና ሬድ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ እዚ ግን ከሰንብደና ይብሉን so ከሰንብደና ይብሉን that's all so ኣበይና ክንከታተሎ ንጀሮም ፓወል ንዝብል ሕቶ yeah the most important go with it Jerome Powell Bloomberg ክንጥቀም ኢና ኣሕዋት yeah Bloomberg ክንጥቀም ኢና እዚኣ ክንጥቀም ኢና in case on ክንገብራ ኢና አይ ገምቱ All right. Yeah. Overall,
argument, and they could have made that case for 50, right? So here's what they could have said. They could have said, this is very similar to the mid-cycle adjustments of 1995 and 2019. It's just that we're significantly above neutral, as you said, Lisa, and so we need to come down in iterations of 50 rather than 25. If they'd communicated that clearly, they would have potentially been fine. Right now, the risk...
ምዝራብ ቅሩብ ክብል ክብል ኢሎም መዓንቲ ንመጀመርያ ግዜ ምስኦም ላይፍ ዝወፅኡ ዘለኹ ይዝዋልከ እንታይ ዝገብር ነይረ ላይፍ ይሰምዖሞ ሳመሪ ገብሮ ድሕሪኡ ንእሽተይ ሕጂ ሎም መዓንቲ መጀመርያ ግዜ ከም ዝገብሩ ዘለኹ እንታይ እዩ 50 እንድሕር ካት ገይሮም it could be ነቲ ማርኬት maybe ጠጠው ከብልዎ ክእሉ እዮም ኔክስት ማለት እዚ ዓይነት ዘረባ ክንሰምዕ ንኽእልና ካብ ጀሮም ፓወል እዩ ዝገልጽ ዘሎ 50 ሕጂ እንድሕር ካት ገይሮም ሆይ ኣብ ዝመፅእ ወርሒ ኖቨምበር they might not do it they ክገብሩ ይኽእሉ እዮም. So let's see what happened.
The consumer has been remarkably resilient. We had a bit of a softer patch at the start of the year, which is probably what was being referred to. But if you look at the last 3 or 4 months.
Okay, 4 minutes. We don't need that. You right now, Bloomberg. Hold on, guys. Yeah, I know. Everybody's saying 0.5, 0.25, 0.5, 0.5. All right, let's see that. This is, I hope so. My goodness. Everybody's waiting for it. Yeah, I know. What is our stock market is doing it so far? Okay, is there any? Yeah, kind of not happy. S&P is down. What to like? Yeah, it's down. Malet negative 0.15 cents. Yeah, down. Kanazella. Down Jones also down almost about negative 27. Gena market na for his alone cut zelo. What else do we have to? Yeah, Tesla is doing great. Yeah, Bitcoin is down. What Bitcoin is down almost to 654 نيرة ناب 59 down كوين الله 340 كنيسة. So it's very scary. My goodness, what is gonna come on, Fed? What we are getting? أبزي أنا هريا. You guys, إذا بعلكم تقبروا تقولهم. أبي إذا خير أنا this is what the board governor of Federal Reserve System. So أبزي أتمت أنا the most important. We will get in here the report. I have in my app already. أبزي. So within like 3 minutes. So far, yeah, our market is not doing great. Malet, yeah. Okay. So, اندحر قريصم 50 حوات يجلهم مع انت تايخ متسخل 50 اندحر قريصم maybe ابور 10 حدا تطوكو بلو خليهم. That's what I heard. كم ذنب بس زوعالكو ويكا ازرعهم. هجي 50 اندحر قريصم maybe ابور 10 حدا زي قبر خليهم. So, like Jerome Powell انت خبرنا خلي maybe like you know oh they can get burn خيلنا وين هجي 25 اندحر كات كيروم كن oh yeah زي keep doing كن قبرنا خيلنا نقصالونكم إلا هنقصل ماركتنا صبق الله رسيشن دحنا لنا GDP نا صبق الله نداولو استاتكم يخليهم. So سكورت right 2 minutes away كلتا تعرفنا الله 2 minutes away. Come on my computer don't slow down me today. Alright, here you go. That's right. That article is in here. Article now. All right, S&P is back to 0.05%. Bitcoin is. All right, Bitcoin also back to 60,000. That's bond is. Come on. Yeah, bond is a little up to 0.049. Ha 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 ha. No way. All right, 1 minute away. حدا ضغط تعرفنا. Yes. This article زيا change تكبر حوات. Look this. زيا صحفت زيا خد كيرا رايد أو يرأي واهم. أب ساعات أنت مسيوم مالت report سريدم. Yep, let's see what is going to be our oh yeah, all green, my friend. It's back up green. All green. Stock is come green. Stock is happy. Everybody's happy. Bitcoin is happy. Oh my goodness. Let's see what happened. Oh. All right, it's time up. Come on, what did it Fed? What is the result? Oh, come on, give me that. Oh, holy shit! 50 base points, my friend. 50, 50. All right, let's get with it. 50. All right, you made it, my friend. You got it. My computer is trying to fail.
Unemployment will hit
Yeah,
4.4% this year. That's an increase from the June figure. It will fall to 4.3% in 2026. PCE inflation of 2.3% this year falls to 2.1% next year and hits the 2% target in 2026.
All right, 50. Thank you. 50. All right, Ahmad. I'm top percent for it. That is the most important. So I have that material right in here. I will go over it. So it looks like, let me stop this guys for a minute. All right, that's the materials right in here. So yeah, GDP is like, my goodness, 2.0. I took a all right, what? Let me go with it. Let me see with it. Yes. Yes. Okay, first choice interest rate by half point, 0.25. Cut, my goodness. All right, let's go to right in here. All right, did I just did it? All right, refresh this. So let's PDF open. Can I write? Download, open, mark. Yeah, Hamza Oritamalo, that's what we want to see. All right, let's go with it. This is the report. If I am there. All right. So GDP نحنا ني تصبيو نبرو أبز حلفة ورحش الدشة زرخبنايو GDP أمودة تزعم زي كل تنتبي حدك خوني لو منانيرو so far بزحيك أيرون كل تنت بزيرو so we have it right now with 3% GDP زلنا حوات this is good no recession أبزي أين زلنا حوات then 2025 GDP now is going to be 2% we don't see any recession أبزي كمان أي تغيرن إذا حلفة هابنا report هجز له report the same 2026 2.0 نيرو هجون نايك أدمن no change my goodness according to the report دي أنا لما عن تمتي هنازلها we don't see مودا market recession أنا so انتاري إنا نيرنا أبز حلفة right ka 1.9 to 2.1 it's better حوات انت not better زبلت اكونتن down a little bit كاب حدا نت بشعاتك ساب كلتا نت بسلسة نيرو أو رح شدش أزرخبنا هجيك انت تثبتنا كاب حدا نت بشعاتك ساب كلتا نت بحدا so أكل تشحن إسران أربعة ناي recession ملكت عين رنزلنا فدرالي زهر happy ولا حانت تحقي سمالو أكل تشحن إسران حموش سنون عين رنزلنا كاب حدا نت شمنتك ساب كلتا نت بغلتك كمز حلفة أي تغيرن أكل تشحن إسران شدش سنون almost grow geru look this حوات كاب حدا نت شمنتك ساب كلتا نت بحدا نبري أكل تشحن إسران شدشن جديبنا ناب كلتا نت سلسة grow قبر إز تثبيتي let's back this so okay this is the most important life in here أنا إذا عمل زيغنو دا maybe زيك قاير غير الحوات so GDP no change unemployment rate so far 4 بارو نبري نابر 4 خمس خيلي this is we don't see bad أبزي هاي فرون صبق لنا قمتي أنا تمالتاي نبل نيرة أبزي مسيلكم 4.3 ويك 4.5 بل نيرة so 4.4 that is good هجي so far 4.3% لنا مالتي good nothing happened yeah 2025 كمان bad icon this is good report good what we have it PC inflation oh my goodness a big drop حوات رايو PC inflation نا تصبيمو نبرو أمودة زعامة زي كل تشحن 24 كل تنتبي شدشته كوينيجن زرخبنايو كل تنت سلسته تثبيت اللهم yes بس إحنا أنا هاريمنا أنا زي this is what we want to see my friend look this زي most target داسيتيا نحنا هجب ساعة زلنا خندي زلنا مسيركم حموش سلسته ماركتنا نابي كوري لولو نابر بعته نتر بعته so 100 base point down كوغدو اليوم انتاينا رزلنا هجي 100 down كرينا so ازي كنا بنقولنا هجي 5 كات جيرو مالو اوكي 50 base point ريخ مالو مجي so maybe أبزمت ورح 10 حدا 0.25 قبل خليهم then ورح 10 خلتها 0.25 depend so this is we want to see أحوات 4.4 down مخانا we are happy on this report this is the best report ever we are happy with this look at let me cancel this all right what could happen still well this number is not happy 4.4 4.6 20 figure another rate cut comes alana come on give me this another rate cut alana so كابز حلفه رايو 5 نت بحدد امودات زعامه زبل نورو ريت عين قرص ناس بدورو هجي 50% زلو قرصو like na 4.4 down كوينا زي اتقند بزي تحزوا دلي زلهم سلازي هجي بهجي كنده غزي قرطيم نزبل yes كلتا غزي قرطيم كلتا غزي قرط خلو ግን እንዳይና ንረዘለና maybe هجي 50 قرطيم ስለዘሎ አብተን كلتا غزي ግን 0.25 ክትኮን ትኸልያ ወርሕ 10 ሓደ እንደገና 0.25 ክትኮን ትኸልያ ወርሕ 10 ትኸልተ this is what we want to see what زينا هنردلنا we like that let's go to our market so yeah look this to the sky my friend our stock market all right okay yes look this S&P is up almost 0.62 we got 34.7 let's go what is other points yeah down like 200 point at Geromali it's down that's good one so we got his S&P. I think so the highest record S&P. What is this? Let's get. Maybe sell off مسيخ الحوات. Maybe هجي green خوني red خوني خل market ناس. Good cuts let's go over. Maybe. All right. This is the highest actually. 56, 89. Yeah, 69. Still it's not, but the highest almost in 52 weeks. All right. Let's go with it. What else? What else? Come on, my computer. Yeah, Tesla is up. 2%. My goodness, 2% now. Like almost $4.56 adgera. So market is happy. B50 base point. انت اخبل ابزي اجن عين زنقع مشت اخهلو خولي مخسب كوصي خليو ريت قيار خلي ماركتنا but that's fine what is crypto is happy yeah it's okay yeah Ethereum is down I don't know why crypto is kind of happy let's go bonds what is gonna do bonds yeah still in exchange I renzel a bond rate cut mality all right let's go is Jerome Powell online is coming now no he's not yet let them talk. Oh my goodness. Why is this? I hate this computer doing this. My goodness. All right. What is CME Fit? Telling us now. كنا دحر 4 ساعات معلتكم وصنايم. هي جون. So انطينا نصب زلنا نزبل حتى. Okay. I'm sorry guys. This computer is kind of dead of the hell. My goodness. Hello? Yes. Who's this? Who? Hello? Yeah. It's just no color. Get them to them. Anyway, so our hazard had ዝመጽእ ዘሎ ማርኬትና still another rate cut ከም ዘሎ እዩ ዝሕብረና ዘሎ ኣሕዋት look this another rate cut ከም ዘሎ ማለት almost ናብ 4.75 ክወርድ ምዃኑ እዩ ዝነግረና ዘሎ እንደገና ኣብ sorry ኣብ what I'm talking is ab November. Let's go with it. So it's not updated yet, but let's go with it. What it says in here. So let's go to Clifford now.
What is this market sniffing out?
Well, it's sniffing.
Okay, ንሱ ብዝበሎ ቃላት ማርኬትና ሬት ክኾን ይኽእል እዩ my goodness by
Run away into somebody's style inflation. That's not what it's saying. But what it is saying is that on
2025 ريتنا هنا ክንደይ ክኸውን probability ለና 3.4 መወዳእታ ዓመት ማለት እዩ look this like in 2025 rate ሕጂ ዘለና ወለድ it's going to be about 3.4. This is good one ኣሕዋት ab 2025 እንድሕር ወለድና ወይ ከዓ ፌድ ፋንድ ሬት እንድሕር ናብ 3.4 ወራሉ ይኮይኑ ንሕና for sure 5% ክንረክብ ንኽእል ኢና ኣብትና ህና ናይ ሬት ና ወይ ከዓ ናይ ሞርጌጅ ና ማለት እዩ so what is going to say
25.
This was a huge victory for Jay Powell, who really laid out at his Jackson Hole speech that he was worried about employment. And that is what this is about. And Mickey Bowman doing a dissent, Powell willing to take a dissent among the board members as opposed to among a president. That is how much he wanted this 0.5% rate cut. And I think that's very important. I think you're going to see it couched and explained within the context of several participants at the July meeting thought they were ready to go ahead and cut. So this is a bit of a catch up to that.
Yeah,
and so that should help temper a little bit this dovish read on it. I was surprised that they kept the risk balanced, although clearly the focus is now on employment and not allowing the situation in employment to become much worse. Remember, we're at 116,000 payroll gains, 3-month moving average as of August. That's not statistically different from zero. Combined with the downward revisions we saw on August 21st, the day before Powell gave his remarks at Jackson Hole, those downward revisions, record downward revisions, even if they're not as large as they appeared because of some immigration that we're not capturing, they're still large. And it means the birth and death rate, the death rate of firms has picked up, and their small businesses aren't hiring as much as well, which could mean actually the payroll data for this year also gets revised down, and that's what they're worried about.
Diane, your work out on LinkedIn has been just hugely beneficial, a really holistic view of the U.S. economy. I have a Dow Jones Industrial Average, bottom of the pandemic, up 128%, 21% per year. I've got debt and deficit that Hal Bronner and Bernstein never dreamed of. Diane Swank, is this a Fed just dealing with our stimuli? Is this a Fed just dealing with debt and deficit to the sky?
You know, we've had everything you could possibly imagine pushed up inflation, and now we're seeing it come down despite the fact that we still have a lot of debt. So, you know, on the margin, yes, we do have high debts, and I do believe we need to deal with that at some point in time. And I don't think we have anyone who's willing to talk about it on either side of the aisle, which is another issue. We can talk about that at a later date. But right now, we've got a Federal Reserve that's no longer buying that debt. And you've got a Federal Reserve that is seeing inflation come down despite the fact that we have high debt. And that's because on the margin, after we get past the sort of 6 months that we put a whole year budget into, from March into October 1st, you get a continuing resolution at best through year end, and you're going to get more constraints on spending, I think, as we get into 2025.
Diane, one reason why this comes as a surprise, this decision, one reason why is because they could have telegraphed this more carefully. There was no data that really moved the needle between the time when the quiet period began and now that would shift us toward 50. Why do you think there wasn't more clear communication that this was a Federal Reserve ready to cut rates by 50 basis points?
Well, frankly, I don't think that Jay Powell, by the time the blackout period hit, had the votes in his pocket to be able to do that. And I think we saw that in some of the mixed messages, even the day of the blackout period. Chris Waller, governor on the Federal Reserve, had said, you know, he'd be open to a more aggressive rate cut, but he didn't seem to be really ready to do it in September. We saw John Williams come out that same day and sort of talking about more cautious rate cuts, more of a quarter point kind of rate cut. So they didn't telegraph it because he hadn't corralled the cats. But this really does speak to the fact that he does have an extraordinary ability to actually do just that.
Let's get to this quote from Neil Dutta of Renmark, just out at the moment. Here's the issue. The balance of risks have changed. In June, most saw balanced risk to unemployment rate. Now, this has completely flipped. Most see risk to unemployed skewed to the upside. This will not be the last time we see a 50, in our opinion. Lisa, your thoughts?
This is basically what's being priced into this year. I mean, how else do they get to more than 100 basis points potentially by the end of this year? And if you think about it, it raises a lot of questions about what they are seeing that suddenly makes that such a consensus, given that we've gotten a lot of mixed messaging.
Let's head back to London and catch up with Bob Michael at JP Morgan Asset Management. Bob, I'm sitting there in cash. I've been sat here for a long time. You've been warning me for a long time that I face real reinvestment risk. The Fed's just cut 50 and I'm freaking out. I give you a call. I'm now worried about another 50 and maybe another 50 after that. What are you buying on my behalf?
We're telling clients, just get into the bond market. Just get into a general bond fund. It could be an aggregate investment grade bond fund. It could be a core plus bond fund. If you're in a high tax bracket, get into a general municipal bond fund. Yields are coming down. Yields are at this level with $6.3 trillion in cash building up and most people not liking the bond market. Some buying has brought it down here. And this money will come in because they're going to watch the return on cash go down like power windows.
I got to say, Mohammed, this goes to the point that you were making. I'd love your comments on this idea that the Fed was seeing something that made him shift his view. And what we're seeing right now is that maybe he just didn't have the votes. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what that means going forward, that maybe they're going to be even more aggressive than the market previously thought, and that maybe it is appropriate to price in even more spread compression, even more yields going lower.
So it would not surprise me if that is the market reaction. It would not surprise me at all, because the market has been conditioned to ask for more and more and gets more and more. So it wouldn't surprise me if that is what happens. I will go back to the significant dispersion in people in FOMC members' view as to what the destination looks like. And that dispersion has got to be reconciled over time. So I don't think it is as clear-cut as the market will make it seem.
Diane Swank, I got 8 ways to go here. Let's try this. You've got a wonderful reading of America away from 3 zip codes in Manhattan, the quadrants of Washington, D.C. This rate cut, how does it affect America that are not the elites, not the people enjoying NVIDIA to the moon?
Well, this is really important because the rate cuts, the short-term rate cuts, are what come through on loans that consumers take out. This is beyond the mortgage rate situation. This also helps the mortgage rate situation, obviously, but the real issue for consumers are short-term interest rates and how they are priced on their debt. Now, on the credit cards, the average credit card rate is about 25%. This is a rounding error on that. It's not going to help a lot on that. It's just incredible how high those rates are. But when you get into auto loans, when you get into other kinds of loans that consumers take in businesses, middle market through small businesses, it affects all those loans. And right now, you can imagine a lot of people are going to get some relief in terms of that. Now, the good news is there's not a lot of overhang of debt for consumers, and they can service the debt they've got. But for those lower income households that have already exhausted all of their savings and then some, this is good news. They rely on lower rates to buy used vehicles. They can't even afford to buy new vehicles anymore. That goes right up into middle income households. So that's where we'll see some movement, but it's not immediate. You're not going to see, the Fed also understands there's lags. And I think Mohammed is right about the issue of the market front running, when the real message here is that this was not signaling that we're ready to cut. This is a window of opportunity to cut now, catch up on July. That's important, but this isn't a signal that they're ready to go 0.5%, almost like sort of continuously. And the election is an uncertainty. That is not factoring into the decision today, but it is an uncertainty in terms of policy for 2025 and 2026. And that could change the trajectory for the Federal Reserve once that cloud of uncertainty regarding the election outcome in the U.S. is lifted.
Could not agree more. Dan, just one of the best as always, the clinic. Diane Swank there of KPMG. November 7th could be a very, very different meeting. If you are just joining us, welcome to the program. 25 or 50? We got 50 from this Federal Reserve. The outlook, unclear. 10 out of 19 officials favoring lowering interest rates by at least an additional half point over the remaining 2 meetings of 2024. And the next meeting in 2024 could be very interesting if we do indeed have in hand the outcome of the presidential election. Malazeli of Deutsche Bank joins us.
Yeah, he's right. And again, abzimetsun kaptom 10 sha'at zuzun almost 10 0.5 rate cut يمصبي زلو so December مودعتا عمد كخبر اليوم نزبل حتى maybe دان كوني خليو ግን depend outcomes يحوات ات influence نهنا CPI انت خمسل يخل PC انت خمسل يخل unemployment is the most important يحوات unemployment انت خوني يخل نزبل ازي انا ازمل so ابز مصاي كابزي اكساب مودعتا زعمل زلو زمسنا election ندير unemployment strong report نركب علينا خوينا حوات yeah they might do نتاخ قبر خليهم 0.25 ورحت شعته sorry ورح 10 حدا and then 0.25 كورا 10 خلته كم ايلم خوري خليهم big cut up 2025 هالو مخنيات 2025 first fund rate كساب كندا يدلي ولو كساب 3.4 موداتا 3.4%. look this 2025 3.4 مهلاو مالت almost كلته 200 base point ويكا كلته % اقري له مالو هج زلنا زنبرنا كندا نيرنا 5.5 نيرنا. So this report is really great, good, bad. Jerome Powell and Tahbulana will see. What he said.
The goal of this is to keep financial conditions easy, to ensure that financial conditions don't over tighten and put a soft landing in jeopardy. That is ultimately the legacy of Chair Powell, and I think that he took out some insurance against that today. I think that's a good outcome for the economy. Hopefully he can message it in that way, which is they have a positive outlook. This is not the starting of a 50 basis point cutting cycle. And I think if you get that, soft landing prospects improve, financial conditions ease, and we have a very good outcome for the economy.
Yeah, Matt, one of the stickiest areas of inflation has been the housing market. And what we've seen there has been recently an uptick in mortgage applications, as well as just in general, some of the home lender stocks. How quickly?
Maybe soft land so the recession is out. I don't see that. The recession market, I don't soft landing. If the soft land is great to our stock market. All right, right now, and the recession is going to be the best. What is it?
Seeing activity and purchase activity, it does seem to be lagging a little bit the move in the mortgage rate so far. My own view is I think that's driven by when you look at the University of Michigan or Conference Board, so many consumers expect rates to come down over the next year. And so that has to happen and maybe as rate cuts happen and as mortgage rates fall further, that really does unleash activity in the housing market. That would present upside risks for the economy. I think the reality is Q2 growth was 3%. Q3 growth is tracking near 3% according to the Atlanta Fed GDP.
Yeah.
When you look at consumer spending on a 3-month annualized rate, it's the highest that we've had since.
All right, let's summarize this. What do you say this economist? In types of law, Deutsche Bank. Okay, now Deutsche Bank, yes, economist. All right, now in types of he nailed good points. All right, nahna نايجزا مشات ملوات هجي مورك خيري ومخنياته مولد مقرأ سلس جمري حادي economy هنا grows جبرالو according Atlanta's Fed انت عملهم تمار ريبورت وتوقع مالي GDP هنا up Q3 ب 3% كعبي لهم نالو wow my goodness at the end of the day economy هنا at the end of this year 2024 بخلتنا بحدا percent كعبي لهم تم economists وسينو مالو جن ب 3% دعوين دحر كيرو እቲ unemployment ና ድሓን እንድሕር ኮይዱ they may slow down እቲ ዝመጽእ ማለት እዩ but that's a great news እቲ ንሕና we are out of capital recession.
You love asking this one too, so I'll ask it for you. What's your question for Mike McKee in this news conference a little bit later on this afternoon?
Has the concept of an equilibrium long-term neutral Fed funds rate expired? Do we need that anymore? Shouldn't they be talking more in terms of a real Fed funds rate, maybe minus 1% to plus 3%? I mean, for goodness sakes, in my career, I've seen the Fed funds rate at 0 and 20%. So trying to target something like that is nonsensical to me.
Hey, Bob, good to catch up as always. Bob Michael at JP Morgan, Asset Management. We get 50 from the Federal Reserve. Your news conference is 5 minutes away. The price action looks like this, up a half of 1%.
He's a fund manager, and index fund manager. So that's what he did. That's why he said a bond up comes investor
they did not get. If you want to take a look at whether this is a Fed that can outdo market expectations, it seems like they did. And the projections going forward really highlight how this market likes to run ahead of even where Fed pricing is. Just look at this. If you take a look at Fed fund future pricing, we're actually pricing in a 4.1% Fed funds rate to end this year. So we're talking about an additional almost 100 basis points of additional cuts from here. 150 basis points of cuts, which just again points to why.
I don't know. Well, she got this. Okay. First fund rate, that means another 100 point alone in the so 50 and then 50 that's going to be another blowout.
Late in the press conference, John, when we get to the political questions, like if I was to parachute John into the Alarian Institute of Behavioral Economics and Policy,
would you behave?
The first, I would behave.
The
answer is there's 2 United Kingdoms out there, and there's 2 Americas out there, and he has to address within his neutrality and the political debate those 2 Americas. It's not just about Bob Michael and the portfolio on Park Avenue trying to figure out what to do next.
How does he navigate some of those issues, Mohammed? How difficult is it to set policy for 2 very different experiences in this economy?
It's very difficult. It's even more difficult when politicians are shouting,
go 75.
Go 75. No, it is really difficult. What's not clear to me is if he is actually buying insurance, what is the cost of that insurance? What is the downside of buying insurance? Insurance is hardly ever costless. So what is the downside of having bought insurance for the economy? And that's something we'll only find out over time.
What's the cost of buying insurance for the economy, but also for the Fed and for its political independence and its reputation therein? I just wonder if it's more difficult to make the decision now on November 7th, now that you've had this initial 50 basis point rate cut, and you have a market that's now saying, yeah, you could do another one in November.
Yeah, and that was the argument all along. Start in July. Don't get yourself in this situation. But it is what it is, and they're now going to have to navigate this. I think Powell is going to be very clear. He'll say we are not impacted by political issues, just like he will say that he is.
Yeah, well, this I don't know, guys. Hawat, and Mohammed, he's a chief economist. Well, Hawat. Politically مصالو إنه نوفمبر مرجع خمسة لون فلتنا نوفمبر حموش تام مرجع دحر غلطة معلتي أخا فيرس فان فير كأحمد. Oh, Jerome Powell is here. Jerome Powell is coming.
Very different on November 7th. We said that.
Let's wait for him. So, what مرجع أنا عنا شجرة بالناني يوم زبل زلو go. Come on, no, that's not the matter. زي أب بتعمي complicated clear كجبرا زلو مرجع نوفمبر حموش سلو. Okay, السمع عدل جيرهم. نوفمبر شوعته ورح عسرت حد على شوعته من ساتم كأنا زر ريبورت زلوا مالتي هجين تاع تصبط نبر مرجع قديمات مسألة I hope قديمة إذا مرجع قديمة نايريت كات أنت تخوني را قدم مرجع for sure 0.5 مقبرو مالتي سلزي maybe من تمريسو فليت أمس دحري ريت كات كقبرو دحر غلطة معلتي so عايز ألوه من نسبة الحتة it doesn't matter هجي 0.5 مقبرون عبي نجر خوني خلي politically ملقت اللو زلو خوني خلي. So Jerome Powell is about
to because essentially you have inflation coming down and you have an economy that is in a trajectory that typically does lead to further weakening. Is it history that can actually make sense at a time that has defied a lot of historical precedents? It's going to be a really difficult one for him to really.
It's going to be difficult because they're coming out of a pandemic.
what Trump said, Trump ድሕሪ ተመሪፁ ሕዋት Jerome Powell is going to be fired. That's what he said. Jerome Powell fire ገብረካ ኢልዎ ምክንያቱ ብሰንኪ ኢንፍሌሽን መፂሎ ኣነ ነቲ ናይ ገዛ ሞርጌጅ ዘሎ ዳውን ክገብሮ እየ ዝብል ኣሎ ሶ ሕጊ ናይ ትራምፕ እዩ ሒዝዎ መፂ ዘሎ ሶ Jerome Powell ኣክት ክገብር ኣሎ ሎማዓንቲ እንታይ ኢሉ ይዛረብ ክንሰምዖ ኢና ምክንያቱ ሎማዓንቲ ዕድል ዘላቶ 0.5 ምግባርን እንደገና ሕጂ ዝዛረቦን ሲ ንማርኬት እንታይ ክህበና ይኽእል እንድሕር ፅቡቅ ዘረባ ተዛሪቡ ሕጂ ኣሕዋት ክሳብ ምርጫ ዘሎ could be nice. ጽቡቅ ዝኾነ return ንኽርኢ ንኽእልና This is like really
has rallied. This yield has dropped, and that continues at least for now. We're down 4 basis points at the front end of the curve. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, after cutting interest rates by 50 basis points, takes the floor.
All right, Jerome Powell is here. Let's see what he said.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Our economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. The labor market has cooled from its formerly overheated state. Inflation has eased substantially from a peak of 7% to an estimated 2.2% as of
ከትሕዘኩም ሕዋት ፅቡቅ ሪፖርት ጀሚሩሎ ኢንፍሌሽንና ዳውን ኮይኑሎ ካብ 7% ናብ 2.2% ዳውን ኮይኑሎ they are happy ስራሕና ንሕና unemployment maximize ንምግባር እዩ كل سب نخسرح يو إن أنا سرح زلنا زينا تراري نابل الله ستبون أجرّا inflation is down to 2.2%. That's point. Another one. Let's go with it. Jerome Powell.
As of August, we're committed to maintaining our economy's strength by supporting maximum employment and returning inflation to our 2% goal. Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to reduce the degree of policy restraint by lowering our policy interest rate by a 0.5 percentage point.
Okay.
This decision reflects our growing confidence that with an appropriate recalibration of our policy stance, strength in the labor market can be maintained in a context of moderate growth and inflation moving sustainably.
All right, تسمعنا لما أنتي نحن ولنا بزيرو 50 وكا 0.5% down gearna لنا just they are agree مالتي. Let's see. Inflation is controlled. That's a good news. Inflation 2.2 أحوات حزوة ذانت بي.
Sustainably down to 2%. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings.
Oh, whoa. Another point. Our security holding مالت أحوات. كلتنا نجرم زقبرو. Look this. Money supply money law printed زخونة معاد جنزب أقوله. نتي جنزب نسخة أنت حقبرو so ready كقبرو الساعة still አይተቀየረትን ኩስኹሉ ይቃሉም ታገንዘብ ግን ረዲስ ይገብሩ አለው Okay, let's do it.
I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. GDP rose at an annual rate of 2.2% in the first half of the year, and available data point to a roughly similar pace of growth this quarter. Growth of consumer spending has remained resilient, and investment in equipment and intangibles has picked up from its anemic pace last year. In the housing sector, investment fell back in the second quarter after rising strongly in the first. Improving supply conditions have supported resilient demand and the strong performance of the U.S. economy over the past year. In our summary of economic projections, committee participants generally expect GDP growth to remain solid, with a median projection of 2% over the next few years. In the labor market, conditions have continued to cool. Payroll job gains averaged 116,000 per month over the past 3 months, a notable step down from the pace seen earlier in the year. The unemployment rate has moved up but remains low at 4.2%. Nominal wage growth has eased over the past year, and the jobs to workers gap has narrowed. Overall, a broad set of indicators suggests that conditions in the labor market are now less tight than just before the pandemic in 2019.
All right, he pointed out أحوات the labor market less tight كوينلو ما مخنياتو inflation is down حزني 2.2% down كوينلو labor market وكان عدو على صراحتها tight كوينلو so that's the problem زي أتها شجر أزمته كسابة جحمة قايسة معنا market is gonna be happy listen.
The labor market is not a source of elevated inflationary pressures.
Okay, yeah.
The median projection for the unemployment rate in the SEP is 4.4% at the end of this year, 0.4 higher than projected in June. Inflation has eased notably over the past 2 years, but remains above our longer run goal of 2%. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.2% over the 12 months ending in August, and that excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.7%. Longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 2.3% this year and 2.1% next year, somewhat lower than projected in June. Thereafter, the median projection is 2%. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. For much of the past 3 years, inflation ran well above our 2% goal, and labor market conditions were extremely tight. Our primary focus had been on bringing down inflation, and appropriately so. We are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. Our restrictive monetary policy has helped restore the balance between aggregate supply and demand, easing inflationary pressures and ensuring that inflation expectations remain well anchored. Our patient approach over the past year has paid dividends. Inflation is now much closer to our objective, and we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. As inflation has declined and the labor market has cooled, the upside risks to inflation have diminished and the downside risks to employment have increased. We now see the risks to achieving our employment.
The Fed is bullish, what the Fed is doing like awesome. I don't know why. Like update GoBroCom. This is like ridiculous. What? Bitcoin is going up, and then Kulu like US stock, S&P is going up. Everything is going up. Still, all the economy as at least Kulu. Let's go with it.
Employment and inflation goals as roughly in balance, and we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate. In light of the progress on inflation and the balance of risks, at today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a 0.5 percentage point to 4.75% to 5%. This recalibration of our policy stance will help maintain the strength of the economy and the labor market, and will continue to enable further progress on inflation as we begin the process of moving toward a more neutral stance.
Here you go the point. Look this, what? Inflation up, progress here. Continue doing it. Malet rate cut ክንገብርና ቀጻሊ ክንገብርና. Point. I like it. Thank you.
We are not on any preset course. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting.
So this is bullish. We are not. بأخيبا مصيسي rate كل እንዳተቋረጸና rate ክንቆርጽና ጥራሕ ይዝብለና ዘሎ. He's doing something good.
We know that reducing policy restraint too quickly could hinder progress on inflation.
I don't
At
like
the same time, reducing restraint too slowly could unduly weaken economic activity and employment.
I don't like this word. እንታይ ዝሆነ ዘሎ ረዲስ ምግባር too quickly ማለት ቀልጢፍና እንድሕር አክት ምግባርና ሕማቅ ክኸውን ይኽእል ኢንፍሌሽን ስቲል ዘይክንቋፀር ንኽእልና እንተደንጊና ኸ still ማርኬትና ክህሰ ይኽእል. This is the point. So እንታይ ዝብለና ዘሎ we will go medium ክንከይድና እዩ ዝብለና ዘሎ. ኣዚና አክት እንድሕር ጌርና ሕጂ ኢንፍሌሽንና እንታይ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ ማለት ኣብ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ እንተደንጊና ኸ ሬሴሽን ከጋጥመና ይኽእል እዩ. So ንሕና ሞደሬት እንዳገበርና ማእከላዊ ኣዝና ኣብ ክንከይድና. I like it. Good.
In considering additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of.
Yeah, ኣብቲ ክንመጽእ ከለና እቲ ሬት ክንቆርጽ ከለና ኖቨምበር 7 ማለት ይሕዋት. So ዳታ ክንርኢና እቲ ዳታ ማለት PPI, CPI, PCE mostly ክንርኢና. ሽዑ እንድሕር ከም ዝኸደ ዘሎ እንድሕር እንዳኸይዱ maybe 0.5 ቆርጽ ይኽእል እዮም ኣሕዋት. Who knows? እንድሕር ብሕልፊ unemployment ካ ኣስጋእ እንዳኾነ እንድሕር ከይዱ ማለት እዩ.
Of risks.
Yeah.
In our SEP, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate based on what each participant judges to be the most likely scenario going forward. If the economy evolves as expected, the median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 4.4% at the end of this year and 3.4% at the end of 2025.
Great. So, Malit, أمود هذا عمد 4.4 كونيتي Fed's fund rate هجي 5.5 نبرة مالتي 100% another 0.5 قرطيهم up next year it's going to be end of next year 3.4 normally كريئكم موداتها by the way حتون ملسنا له بتعمتهم economists حتوا أبزي أو أنتايلي من الاستراحة they're still doing great.
These median projections are lower than in June, consistent with the projections for lower inflation and higher unemployment, as well as the changed balance of risks. These projections, however, are not a committee plan or decision. As the economy evolves, monetary policy will adjust in order to best promote our maximum employment and price stability goals. If the economy remains solid and inflation persists, we can dial back policy restraint more slowly. If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we are prepared to respond.
Yes, look, that sentence can also حوات. ندحر inflation خمس خرز الله weekend داقبر ندحر كيرو. Unemployment weekend دابل ندحر كيرو. كلتين سنة نسرحمكو. So respond خنقبرنا أكتر خنقبرنا. Maybe what? Bullish in here calls حوات. Bullish 0.5. Inflation is under control. Unemployment is also bad. يخير مهلاو أبي خير مهلاو خلنا رأينا لنا قطبنا. Another bullish Jerome Powell. Let's go.
Policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face in pursuing both sides of our dual mandate. The Fed has been assigned two goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Yep, let's move to questions. Okay.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking our questions.
CNBC,
in July, you said you weren't necessarily thinking about a 50. You didn't want to be specific, but you said you were thinking about a 50. The inflation data last week came out a little firmer than expected. Retail was strong, third quarter GDP running 3%. So what changed and made the committee go 50, and how do you respond to the concerns?
Yeah, like Steve, I CNBC reporter ማለት እንታይ ኢልዎ ዘሎ okay, retailer was come strong. ናይቲ ማል ነበር retail ጽቡቕ ነይሩ ኢልዎ. Okay, 25 እንዳተጽበነ ኋላ ግን እንታይ እዩ ናብ 50 ዘምጻኩም? Steve, good question ሕዋት. That's good question. ምክንያቱ ትማሊ ዝነበረ retail ጽቡቕ ነይሩ ናይ መሸጣ ናይ ነገራት ማለት እዩ.
Perhaps it shows the Fed is more concerned about the labor market. And I guess, should we expect more 50s in the months ahead? And based on what should we make that call? Thank you.
So, okay, a lot of questions in there.
I know, it's a lot of questions. So, Steve, እንታይ ኢሉ ሓይቱ ወላ ኣብ ዝመጽውን it looks like more 50 ከም ዘለና ኢና ንጽበ ዘለና. እንታይ ኢና ኣብዚ ኩሉ ዝገብረካ ዘሎ ይዘግብ. Okay, go ahead, Jerome Powell.
Let me jump in. Since the last meeting, we have had a lot of data come in. We've had the two employment reports, July and August. We've also had two inflation reports, including one that came in during blackout. We had the QCEW report, which suggests that suggests that the payroll report numbers that we're getting may be artificially high and will be revised down. You know that. We've also seen anecdotal data like the Beige Book. So we took all of those and we went into blackout and we thought about what to do, and we concluded that this was the right thing for the economy, for the people that we serve, and that's how we made our decision. So that's one question. What was the second and third?
Yeah, ጽቡቕ መሊስሉ ስለምንታይ እዩ ዝብል ሕቶ ኣሕዋት ኣብ ዝሓለፈ እውን ሪፖርት ጌርና ነርና ኢና ብዙሓት ኣብ ፔሮል ኣትዮም ከም ዘለዉ ኢና ግምት እቲና ነይሩ ኣብቲ ናይ ኢምፕሎይመንት ግን 818 ሲ ሪቫይዝ ምስ ተገብሩ ካብኦም ወፂኦም ኦልሞስት 2.9 ዝነበሩ ሰራሕተኛታት ዓድ ገይሩ ማርኬትና ክንዲዚኦም ቆፂሩ ዝብል ነበረ ጌጋ ሪፖርት እዚ ሪቫይዝ ገበረ ናብ 2.2 ወሪዱ እዚ ሓደ ዓቢ ኮንሰርን ኮይኑና yes እታ ናይ ጆብ እያ the most important ኣሕዋት
Sorry, thank you, sir. How do we figure out in the months ahead, is there another 25 or 50 coming in based on what shall we make that call? Thank you.
Sure. So
another ዝመጽእ ከ ኢሉ ሓተሎ ዝመጽእ ሲ እንታይ ኣኹም 0.25 ነው ትቆርጡ ዋላ 0.50 so what እንታይ ኣኹም decision ክትገብሩ good question I like it what let's see what he's going to ኣብዚ ኣሕማቕ እንተ ተዛሪብ ማርኬት ና ሬድ ከውንያ let's see what happens
a couple of things a good place to start is the SEP, but let me start with what I said, which was that we're going to be making decisions meeting by meeting based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, the balance of risks. If you look at the SEP, you'll see that it's a process of recalibrating our policy stance away from where we had it a year ago when inflation was high and unemployment low, to a place that's more appropriate given where we are now and where we expect to be. And that process will take place over time. There's nothing in the SEP that suggests the committee is in a rush to get this done. This process evolves over time. Of course, that's a projection. That's a baseline projection. We know, as I mentioned in my remarks, that the actual things that we do will depend on the way the economy evolves. We can go quicker if that's appropriate. We can go slower if that's appropriate. We can pause if that's appropriate. But that's what we were contemplating. I would point you to the SEP as just an assessment of where what the committee is thinking today, what the individual members rather of the committee are thinking today, assuming that their particular forecasts are realized.
بحتر تبلا داتا خنرينا زبل تي اي سي بي مالتي كلنا نفضل حوات تي داتا انا خنري بت داتا رينا ونكون وسنا most probably 50 خمس قبروا مالتي okay what's next
Hi, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. Thank you. The projections show that the Fed officials expect the Fed funds rate to still be above their estimate of long-run neutral by the end of next year. So does that suggest you see rates as restrictive for that entire period? Does that threaten the weakening of the job market that you said you'd like to avoid? Or does it suggest that maybe people see the short-run neutral as a little bit higher than long? Thank you.
I think
that question is good question. مخنيات مودات 2025 كساب انتا إلنا زلو 3 سنة بربعتك خوني يخيلي مودات فيدس فند ريت مالتيو مودات زعمت 4 سنة بعد مودات 2025 كن كباب 3 سنة بعد كساب كندوسي avoid كنقبرن خيلنا ليو عنتو بتزاري بنيرو so actually يسمعكم كمان عليه so is this انتا يتنعها بس إنك ناي job weekend ناي job دخام زلو سلازر زلو دي كتيرو تخلو دخم مانيات kind of type زلوس عمت ملوسي أبز هجي كل تور حتقبرو 100 voice point ويكا 1% عمت ملوس 1% راح يكون كات كتقبرو نعمتها بلالو so is this انتا يتنقر most probably we needed like 2 point قلم عليه let's see what he said Jerome Powell
the way I would really characterize it is this. I think people write down their estimate, individuals do. I think every single person on the committee, if you ask them what's your level of certainty around that, they would say there's a wide range where that could fall. So I think we don't know. There are model-based approaches and empirically based approaches that estimate what the neutral rate will be at any given time. But realistically, we know it by its works. So that leaves us in a place where we expect, in the base case, to be continuing to remove restriction, and we'll be looking at the way the economy reacts to that, and that'll be guiding us in our thinking about the question that we're asking at every meeting, which is our policy stance the appropriate one? We know, if you go back, we know that the policy stance we adopted in July of 2023 came at a time when unemployment was 3.5% and inflation was 4.2%. Today, unemployment is up to 4.2%. Inflation's down to a few tenths above 2. So we know that it is time to recalibrate our policy to something that is more appropriate given the progress on inflation and on employment moving to a more sustainable level. So the balance of risks are now even. And this is the beginning of that process. I mentioned the direction of which is toward a sense of neutral. And we'll move as fast or as slow as we think is appropriate in real time. But what you have is our individual accumulation of individual estimates of what that will be in the base case.
Yeah, it's good answer. Like not bad answer. I have a market نحنا. Yes. ولا سلسلة أربعة مودات عمد أنا نتصبين بر كل شيء نحنا تريبورت نقبرنا somehow نتزمت أنا ممكن يروحهم نخلي. كن مستزلو داتا عندي مستزمت أنا ريبورت نحنا 5 جميتنا لنا هج مودات أنا عمد كل تشحن 25 سلسلة أربعة جميتنا لنا. كن وزن أبزمت زركب وتسقيت ينزز والسنو كغيار خلي يزبل نازله. Good point. I like it.
Howard.
Howard Schneider with Reuters. How close was this in terms of the decision? You do have the first dissent by a governor since 2005, I think. Was the weight clearly in favor of a 50, or was this a very close decision?
I think we had a good discussion. If you go back, I talked about this at Jackson Hole, but I didn't address the question of the size of the cut, left it open. And I think we left it open going into blackout. And so there was a lot of discussion back and forth, good diversity of division, excellent discussion today. I think there was also broad support for the decision that the committee voted on. So I would add, though, look at the SEP. All 19 of the participants wrote down multiple cuts this year, all 19. That's a big change from June, right? 7 of them wrote down 3 or more, and 17 of the 19 wrote down 3 or more cuts, and 10 of the 19 wrote down.
Oh, 17 سلسة جزء كات 17 كاتم 10 محوات زيادم تم 19 يوم تم نزق قداي زي أسرح وازلو 15 يوم مصيب consolidate نغونا 10 ناتم سي 10 تخابهم سلسة جزء ريت كات كجبر مخانم سلسة جزء ريت كات حدا لو مالو أبز متون كجبر مخانم. Whoa, that is great. Bullish again, bullish, good for the market.
4 more cuts. So, there is a dissent and there's a range of views, but there's actually a lot of common ground as well.
Follow up to that. Now that this is in the books, can you give us some guidance as sort of follow up to Steve on the pacing here? Would you expect this to be running every other meeting once we get into next year?
We're going to take it meeting by meeting. As I mentioned, there's no sense that the committee feels it's in a rush to do this. We made a good, strong start to this, and that's really, frankly, a sign of our confidence that inflation is coming down toward 2% on a sustainable basis. That gives us the ability. We can, make a good, strong start, but and I'm very pleased that we did. To me, the logic of this, both from an economic standpoint and also from a risk management standpoint, was clear. But I think we're going to go carefully, meeting by meeting, and make our decisions as we go.
Yeah, this is all bullish. Jerome Powell, I don't know why it's great today. So abzmat akheba second code inazi decide كنقبرنا. So كلهم on the board حوات كلهم on the board كلهم rate cut كله وسينهم ذلو هجي بمولهم on the board سلزلو. So maybe by the end of 2025 نحنا ولدنا خلينا نخلينا 2.5. This is my not قمتي 2.5 كرر نخلينا since كلهم on board نحركينهم unemployment هاي خونالو. So we will see that كلهم on board مخانهم قد صبقنا قريب 10 يوم سلسة ريت كاتلهم بتم صرفوا كلترم سلسة خنتا أميلهم 4 جزيلهم. So this is good, all good مالتي. Let's move forward. Gina.
Hi, Chair Powell. Gina Smilik of the New York Times. Thanks for taking our questions.
Yeah, New York
You and your colleagues in your economic projections today see the unemployment rate climbing to 4.4% and staying there. Obviously, historically, when the unemployment rate climbs that much over a relatively short period of time, it doesn't typically just stop. It continues increasing. And so I wonder if you can walk us through why you see the labor market stabilizing, sort of what's the mechanism there, and what do you see as the risks?
Okay. Good question, Tina. New York Times. New York Times. She looks smart, lady. Well, حتى بتعمل smart questions. أنت هتزلا unemployment rate أمود هذا زعما زي 4.4 كبت يحزب القمة علىكم. Yes. إذا كن danger يا أتبلو زلا. كسب أبو كلايم مكبر وكا أبو ندحر كونو أو كم زي بلي خاون لعلي. I don't know. She knows that. خاون لعلي سي more focus كم زجبر more high كم زخير أتبلو زلا. إذا سقمة أنت علىكم وكا أنت هيجركم يا. So let's see what he said. That's a good question.
So again, the labor market is actually in solid condition. And our intention with our policy move today is to keep it there. You can say that about the whole economy. The U.S. economy is in good shape. It's growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down. The labor market is in a strong pace. We want to keep it there. That's what we're doing.
Whoa. I'm not going to pass this point, Sahwat. So, inflation, solid condition comes a law, the unemployment as the solid condition. That's a good report. Had it. Netby, we wanted this. صبوا على labor نعناها like unemployment solid conditions it's in a good كنتات على USA economy صبوا على حاجة inflation got down كوينه. This is really great.
Economists and our analysts about where's the data coming from and
4% at the end of 2025. These median projections are lower than in June, consistent with
running every other meeting once we get in.
Where do we go? She was asking smart question, and then what happened with mine? Holy shit! Come on. Sorry, guys.
Journal. Chair Powell, does today's
Oh,
action constitute a
Nicky!
catch-up in action given recent substantial revisions to the employment data? Or is this larger than typical rate cut a function of the elevated nominal level of the policy rate such that an accelerated cadence could be expected to continue?
Okay. Multiple questions there, but so I would say we don't think we're behind. We do not think we think this is timely, but I think you can take this as a sign of our commitment not to get behind. So it's a strong move. Sorry, your other question was?
Well, is this about what happened in the employment data between this meeting and the last meeting, or is this about the level of the funds rate, the high nominal level of the funds rate relative to what might be expected if you're trying to maintain equilibrium?
So I think it's about, we come into this with a policy position that was put in place, as you know, I mentioned in July of 2023, which was a time of high inflation and very low unemployment. We've been very patient about reducing the policy rate. We've waited. Other central banks around the world have cut, many of them several times. We've waited, and I think that patience has really paid dividends in the form of our confidence that inflation is moving sustainably down to 2%. So I think that is what enables us to take this strong move today. I do not think that anyone should look at this and say, oh, this is the new pace. You have to think about it in terms of the base case. Of course, what happens will happen. So in the base case, what you see is look at the SEP. You see cuts moving along. The sense of this is we're recalibrating policy down over time to a more neutral level. And we're moving at the pace that we think is appropriate given developments in the economy in the base case. The economy can develop in a way that would cause us to go faster or slower, but that's what the base case says.
And if I could follow up on the balance sheet, in 2019, when you did the mid-cycle adjustment, you ceased the balance sheet runoff. With a larger cut today, should there be any signal inferred about how the committee would approach end state on the balance sheet policy?
So in the current situation, reserves have really been stable. They haven't come down. So reserves are still abundant and expected to remain so for some time. As you know, the shrinkage in our balance sheet has really come out of the overnight RRP. So I think what that tells you is we're not thinking about stopping runoff because of this at all. We know that these two things can happen side by side. In a sense, they're both a form of normalization. And so for a time, you can have the balance sheet shrinking, but also be cutting rates.
All right, let's sum it. Nikki, he's a great one, guys. So, እንታይ እዩ ዝብሎ ዘሎ the overall ደንጊኹም ዶ እዩ ዓይነት ይመልስ ነው ኣይደንጎና እዩ ዘሎ ኣይደንጎና right time ኢና aggressive ንመጽእ ከም ዘለና ንፈለጥ ኣለና ከም ዘይደንጎና እዩ ዝገልጽ ዘሎ okay ሓደ ኒክቲ ካብቶም ጽሕፍ ነበረ እዩ federal funds ደንጊዮም rate ክንዲዚ ህጾንሒ ነበሮ ምን ዝብል ነይሩ ካልእ እቲ ናይ balance sheet ናይቲ ክልተ ነገር እዩ ዘሎ how to reduce ማለት እዩ እቲ balance sheet ዘለውን ንሱ እቲ ገንዘብ እንታይ ክገብሮ ኣለዎም ካብ ማርኬት የውጽኦ ዘለውን ጠጠው ከብሎ ኣለዎም still كيف دهم كتقبرون نسو بلا زلو يا نسو ستيل كيف كنقبرينا معرة خير كواي قبو أمبر نسيل كم زلو نسو كيف كنقبرينا جزياو kind of not good نسا but it's not gonna be here بزح نجر أي كتم سنة so let's move forward هاد كده رحبنا.
Thank you, Colby Smith with the Financial Times. Just following up on Gina's question on rising unemployment, is it your view that this is just a function of a normalizing labor market amid improved supply, or is there anything to suggest that something more concerning perhaps is taking place here, given that other metrics of labor demand have softened too? And I guess in direct follow-up to Gina is, why should we not expect a further deterioration in labor market conditions if policy is still restrictive?
So I think what we're seeing is clearly labor market conditions have cooled off by any measure, as I talked about in Jackson Hole. And but they're still at a level. The level of those conditions is actually pretty close to what I would call maximum employment. So you're close to mandate, maybe at mandate on that. So what's driving it? Clearly, payroll job creation has moved down over the last few months, and this bears watching. By many other measures, the labor market has returned to or below 2019 levels, which was a very good, strong labor market, but this is more sort of 2018-17. So the labor market bears close watching, and we'll be giving it that. But ultimately, we believe, with an appropriate recalibration of our policy, that we can continue to see the economy growing, and that will support the labor market. In the meantime, if you look at the growth in economic activity data, retail sales data that we just got, second quarter GDP, all of this indicates an economy that is still growing at a solid pace. So that should also support the labor market over time. So, but again, it bears watching, and we're watching.
And just on the point about starting to see rising layoffs, if that were to happen, wouldn't the committee already be too late in terms of avoiding a recession?
So our plan, of course, has been to begin to recalibrate. And as you know, we're not seeing rising claims. We're not seeing rising layoffs. We're not seeing that. And we're not hearing that from companies that that's something that's getting ready to happen. So we're not waiting for that, because there is thinking that the time to support the labor market is when it's strong, and not when you begin to see the layoffs. There's some lore on that.
Well, from Financial Times, whatever it is, that lady ጽቡቅ ሕታ ሓይታ ኣሕዋት እንታይ ኣትብሎ ፀኒሓ መስሪካ እቲ ናይ ለበር እንዲህ ሕጂ ናይ ሰራሕተኛ ሽግር ኮይኑና ዘሎ ኣሕዋት ብሰንኪኦም ከዓ 0.5 ቆሪፆም ዘለዉ ፕላስ ሕጂ እውን ክቆርፁ ወይ ከዓ ክኸዱ ዝብል ዘሎ so 4.4 ምብፅሑሲ lay off ክመፅእ እዩ ሕጂ ኩልና ንፅበዮ ዘለና ኣሕዋት Q3 earning ናይ Q3 earning ኣታዊታት ካምፓኒታት ከም ፀዓን ድሕሪ 4 ሰሙን ገለ መለ ክመፅአን ማለት እዩ so እዚ ጉዳይ እዚ ብዙሕ lay off ኣሎ ኢልኩም ትግምቱ ዶ እዩ ዘሎ እዚ እንድሕሪ ኣጋጢሙ እንታይ ክመፅእ ይኽእል እዩ by the way he's answering good questions ኣብዚ so lay off ዝበሃል ናይ ምፍርራሕ ክሳብ ሕጂ ረኣናን ካብ ስራሕካ ምስጓግ ዝበሃል ኣይረኣናን وأيرانان يبزلوا حقوق سابج لكن كامباني Q3 ريبورت مسجبرا ريبورت ناتن أتاوي إن وصاين ناي Q3 ريبورت مسجبرا مالت Q3 أنت إن بزلنا حوات نسيلكم ناي وحشو عتن شو منتن شعتن مالتي هجي دحر بعد سومن قالك مسمس كابوينا خري شعوينا بالطعم أزي مس أب كنرينا مالتي كورحي عسرتني أكباب زلوا ورا عسرت خلت زلوا بستات أكباب قدم مرجع زلوا أول حسرت زلو أب ساعات زي أنت إخمس بزح lay off دجيرن كامباني ندحر بزح lay off جبر عليهم so yeah جرام بال سرحية متي أكتر جبري ولا emergency متي خليهم حواشيو أنت جبرو خليهم نتي ولد نزه هاي زلو ولا negative جبرو خليهم ولا زيرو جبرو خليهم سلزي جنزب أم ماركت أتيو مالتي شو دحرو أكتر جبرو خليهم سجّن أنت إلوا solid condition نازلنا إلوا عن تبو تناهنا ايكونومي خانا good condition زلو inflation قاعد داون زلو سلازي ازين دحر عليسي ولا حانت شجر يبلنا نبزلو قسنا بلنا ريت ندا قرطنا خنكيدنا this is good حزوازيا lay off كمصي خل دور 10 دس بلا وكنري نخلينا مخنياتو كامباني ريبورت شيعن جبرا شي ريبورت مس جبرا حماق كنري نخلينا then فدرال كمصي خليهم emergency ون كات جبر خليهم
So that's the situation we're in. We have, in fact, begun the cutting cycle now. And we'll be watching, and that'll be one of the factors that we consider. Of course, we're going to look at the totality of the data as we make.
I like this. I like it. Thank you, Jerome Powell. It's a main factor considering Gabrazia and Abralo. So we need that. That is, look, ምክንያቱ ኣሕዋት ካምፓኒ ሎኦፍ እንድሕር ጀሚረን ሰራሕተኛ ክሰጓ እንድሕር ጀሚረን ዊዳን ሮስሽን ኦራይት ቅድሚ ምስጓግን ቅድሚ ምጅማርን ግን ኣክቲ ክገብሩ ኣለዎም ወይ ካምፓኒ ዝክሰጉ እዚ ምስ መፅኦ ስዑ ወለድና ዜሮ እንድሕር ጌርና ደን ካምፓኒ ጠጠው ከብላ ኸላ ገንዘብ ከይደን ሎን ከምፃ ኸላን ሲምፕል ማለት እዩ ሎን ከይደን ዕዳ ከምፃ ኸላን ብውሕድ ኢንተረስት ሬት ማለት እዩ ብውሕድ እንድሕር ንሳቶም ዜሮ ገይሮሞ ሕዝዋ 5.5 ኣሎ ኖ 4.75 ኣሎ ፌደስ ፋንድ ሬት እጂ እንድሕር ካምፓኒ ምስጓግ ክጅምራ ኮይነን ኣታዊ ስለ ዘይብለኒ ገንዘብ ኣታውታ ካምፓኒ ምስ ወሓዳ ሰራሕተኛ ክሰጎግ እያ ሶ ፌደራል ነዚ 4.7 ዘላ ዜሮ እንድሕር ገይሮማ እታ ካምፓኒ እንታ ክትከውን እያ ሽዑ ሰራሕተኛ ካይሰጎገት እንድሕር ሕፅረት ካሽ ኣለዎ ኸይዱ ካብ ባንኪ ከይዳ ከተምፅያ ስለዚ ወለድ ዜሮ ስለ ዝኾነ ብውሕድ ኢንተረስት ምፅያ ገንዘብ ኣምፅያ ካፒታል ነቲ ካምፓኒ ረኺባ ኣላ እቲ ካፒታል ትረኽቦ ኣብ ካምፓኒኣ መሳርሒ ኾና ሰራሕተኛ ከዓ መኽፈሊ ኾና ኢኮኖሚ ከዓ ግሮው ይገብር ማለት this is a trick so very consider ንገብር ኢና ኣክቲ ክንገብር ኢና ምባሉ I like that that's great
make these decisions meeting by meeting.
Michael McKee with Bloomberg TV and radio. To follow up on that, what would constitute for you and the committee a deterioration in the labor market? You're pricing in basically by the end of next year 200 basis points of cuts just to maintain a higher unemployment rate. Would you be moving to a more preemptive monetary policy style rather than, as you did with inflation, waiting until the data gave you a signal?
Well, almost.
No, we're going to be watching all of the data, right?
Yeah.
So if, as I mentioned in my remarks, if the labor market were to slow unexpectedly, then we have the ability to react to that by cutting faster. We're also going to be looking at our other mandate, though. We have greater confidence now that inflation is moving down to 2%, but at the same time, our plan is that we will be at 2%, over time. So, and policy we think is still restrictive, so that should still be happening.
I'm just curious as to how sensitive you'll be to the labor market since you forecast we are going to see higher unemployment and it is going to take a significant amount of monetary easing to just maintain it.
Okay.
So, what I would say is we don't think we need to see further loosening in labor market conditions to get inflation down to 2%. But we have a dual mandate, and I think you can take this whole action as take a step back. What have we been trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve a situation where we restore price stability without the kind of painful increase in unemployment that has come sometimes with disinflation. That's what we're trying to do. And I think you can take today's action as a sign of our strong commitment to achieve that goal.
All right. Nothing. It's not a big deal.
Hi, Chair Powell. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions.
Washington Post.
You're describing this view that you don't think you're behind when it comes to the job market. Can you walk us through the specific data points that you found to be most helpful in the discussions at this meeting? You've mentioned a couple, but would you be able to walk us through what that dashboard told you as far as what you know about the job market now?
Sure. So we'll start with unemployment, which is the single most important one, probably. You're at 4.2%. That's, I know that's higher than we were used to seeing numbers in the mid and even below mid threes last year. But if you look back over the sweep of the years, that's a very healthy unemployment rate, and anything in the low fours is a good labor market. So that's one thing. Participation is at high levels. It's, we're right adjusted for demographics, for aging. Participation's at pretty high levels. That's a good thing. Wages are still a bit above
We've only been running a little above 100,000 jobs a month on payrolls the last 3 months. Do you view that level of job creation as worrying or alarming?
I think so. What's it? مثلا حوات. أنت أعتقد تحط خدق ملكم حوات. أنت إلو مسيركم تقول حتى تطو ناب كواشنطن بوست مالك صبوا حتى تم. تليبرسي كم يجركم أساس جركم ونزبل صبوا نتبدأ تزاريجو. هجي unemployment rate لعل 4 مخانو حدا جنيا إني قط أبانا. Yes high كوينو لو فلتنا لنا. تحت 4 خون ده كوينو صبوا إلو حدا. تي دوموز حدا سبز خفولة سرحتني دوموز خفولة خا. almost እንታይ ኢሉ ዘሎ ጽቡቕ ወሰኽ እንዳገበሩ ብዓመት ይኸይድ ኣሎ ሓደ ዚውን ኣሰስ ጌርና ኢና ጽቡቕ ማለት እዩ እቲ ዋና ኤምፕሎይመንት እኮ ሃይ እንትኾነ እቲ ደሞዝ ዝኽፈሎ ሰራሕተኛ ግን ደሓን ዝኾነ እዩ ጽቡቕ ማች ምስቲ ኢንፍሌሽን እንዳገበረ ይመጽእ ይብሉ ሓደ ክፉት ናይ ስራሕ ቦታ ዕድል ከዓ almost I think so 7.9 correct ቦርኒ 7.9 ሚሊዮን ክፉት ዕድል ኣሎ እንታይ ኢና ንብል ዘለና ኢሉ ሓደ unemployment ዳርጋ ክልተ ዝኾነ ክፉት ናይ ዕድል ስራሕ ኣሎ እዚ እውን ፀገም ኣይኮነን ኣሎ እንደገና ጦጦው ምባል ካብ ስራሕ እውን እዚ እውን ጽቡቕ ሙቭመንት ይዝገብር ዘሎ እዚ I think so ወጽየ ነይረ መስለኒ እዚ ኢና ኣሰስ ጌርናዮ that's why ደሓኒና ዘለና ይዝብ ዘሎ ግን ልዕሊ 4 ምዃኑ ኣይፈተውዎን
or would you be content if we were to kind of stick at that level? And relatedly, one of the welcome trends of the last couple of years has been labor market steam coming out through job openings falling rather than job losses. Do you think that trend has further to run, or do you see risk that further labor market cooling will have to come through job losses?
So on the job creation, it depends on the inflows, right? So if you're having millions of people come into the labor force, and you're creating 100,000 jobs, you're going to see unemployment go up. So it really depends on what's the trend underlying the volatility of people coming into the country. We understand there's been quite an influx across the borders, and that has actually been one of the things that's allowed unemployment rate to rise. And the other thing is just a slower hiring rate, which is something we also watch carefully. So it does depend on what's happening on the supply side. And on the beverage curve question, yes. So we all felt on the committee, not all, but I think everyone on the committee felt that job openings were so elevated that they could fall a long way before you hit the part of the curve where job openings turned into higher unemployment, job loss. And yes, I think we are. It's hard to know that you can't know these things with great precision, but certainly it appears that we're very close to that point, if not at it, so that further declines in job openings will translate more directly into unemployment. But it's been a great ride down. I mean, we've seen a lot of tightness come out of the labor market in that form without it resulting in lower employment.
So our data is what ቀንዲ ክንሪኣ ንግባኣና ሕጂ ቅድሚ ዝመፅእ ወርሒ 11 ዕለት 7 ክልተ ግዜ ሪፖርት ኣለና unemployment report ማለት እዩ so ናይ ወርሒ 9 እና ናይ ወርሒ 10 ማለት እዩ this is the most important ሕጂ ኣብ ፎከስና በይ ዘሎ inflation no more ዛዕባ inflation ኣይኮነን ሽግርና ትሪኦ ኣለኹም ወላ ሕቶም ኩሎም እዞም economists ወይ ከዓ the news reporter whatever it is ኩሎም ብዛዕባ unemployment ጥራሕ እዮም እቲ ዳታ ኣሰካፊ ስለ ዝኾነ ልዕሊ 4 ስለ ዘመጽ ማለት እዩ ጅት አክሽን ሲ ይወሕደና ኣሎ ዛ ዓይነት እዮም ዛርቦ ዘሎ so እዚ ሪፖርት ዝኽሪአና ኣሕዋት very scary ማለት let's see what it does come on this is kind of stuck on my computer is really all right go ahead now hate it why are you doing this
Thanks, Chair Powell. So we've heard some speculation that you may be going with the federal funds rate to 3.5%, maybe under 4%. And there's basically an entire generation that has experienced zero. Or what's the likelihood that cheap money is now the norm?
So this is a question. You mean after we get through all of this?
Wow, that generation back. ኣብዚ ግዜ ዘሎ ወለዶ see እቲ ኢንፍሌሽን እቲ ፌድ ፋንድ ሬት ምክንያቱ ቱ ማች ዘሎ ዋላ ንዓመታት 3.5 ፅበይ ዘሎ 0% እዩ ኣሕዋት ማርች 2020 ማርች ወርሒ 3 2020 0 ገይሮሞ ነይሮም ፌድ ፋንድ ሬት እውን ኦልሞስት ናብ 2% ነይሩ እዚታት እንታይ ግምታት ካብለሎ እንታይ እዩ ማለት ናብኡ ይዘድልየና ዘሎ ንሕና እዚ 3 ብገለ ገለ ገለ እንድሕር ኢንፍሌሽን ኮንትሮል ኮይኑ አንኤምፕሎይመንት ካ ሃይ እንድሕር ኮይኑ እዚ ዓይነት እዩ so እንታይ ክብል ኣሎ he said that great question ኢሉ መሊስዋ I like that attitude Megan
we can only speculate about. Intuitively, many people anyway would say we're probably not going back to that era where there were trillions of dollars of.
Come on, just why you stuck me in here? Sorry, guys.
Sovereign bonds trading at negative rates, long-term bonds trading at negative rates. And it looked like the neutral rate might even be negative. So there was people were issuing debt at negative rates. It seems that's so far away now. My own sense is that we're not going back to that. But, honestly, we're going to find out. But, it feels to me and that the neutral rate is probably significantly higher than it was back then. How high is it? I just don't think we know. It's again, we only know it by its works.
And one more. How do you respond to the criticism that will likely come that a deeper rate cut now before the election has some political motivations?
Yeah, so this is my fourth presidential election at the Fed, and it's always the same. We're always going into this meeting in particular and asking what's the right thing to do for the people we serve. And we do that and we make a decision as a group and then we announce it. And that's always what it is. It's never about anything else.
Yeah,
nothing else is discussed.
Okay.
And I would also point out that the things that we do really affect economic conditions for the most part with a lag. So nonetheless, this is what we do. Our job is to support the economy on behalf of the American people. And if we get it right, this will benefit the American people significantly. So this really concentrates the mind. And, it's something we all take very, very seriously. We don't put up any other filters. I think if you start doing that, I don't know where you stop. And so we just don't do that.
Jolene.
Thank you, Chair Powell. I'm Jolene Kent with CBS News. My first question is, very simply, what message are you trying to send American consumers, the American people, with this unusually large rate cut?
I would just.
I don't want to pass this question. By the way, ቅድማ ነበረት question ናብ 0% to generation ታይሉ ናብኡ ክንመፅእ ኣይትፀበዩ I don't think so ናብቲ ኔጌቲቭ ይኹን 0 ክንመፅእ ኣይንፅበን ኢና ግን somehow ገለ ነገር እንድሕር ኣጋጢሙ ክንመፅእ ምዃንና እዩ ገሊፁ ዘሎ so I don't like the መልሲ ዝመለሳ I don't like that so it's not good but yeah somehow ክንመፅእ ንኽእል 0 ማለት እዩ ካልይቲ እዚኣ እንታይ ኢላ ሓይታቶ I don't know ናይ መን ምዃና ካበይ ምዃና እምበር እንታይ ኢላ ሓይታቶ እንታይ ዓይነት መልእኽቲ ትህቦም ነቶም ኮንሱመርስ ንዓና ነቶም ገዛእቲ ወይ ከዓ ዓደግቲ ማለት እዩ ክሳብ 0.5% ሬት ምቁራፅኩም ወይ ከዓ ቢግ ሬት ምቁራፅኩም እንታይ ዓይነት መልእኽቲ ትህቦም መልእኽቲ ናባና ዝመፅእ ማለት እዩ ሕዋት ንፀበይ ንኢንቨስተር ኣይኮነን ንኮንሱመርስ እቲ that's what it
say that the U.S. economy is in a good place, and our decision today is designed to keep it there. More specifically, the economy is growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down closer to our 2% objective over time, and the labor market is still in solid shape. So our intention is really to maintain the strength that we currently see in the U.S. economy, and we'll do that by returning rates from their high level, which has really been the purpose of which has been to get inflation under control. We're going to move those down over time to a more normal level over time.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Listening to you talk about inflation moving meaningfully down to 2%, is the Federal Reserve effectively declaring a decisive victory over inflation and rising prices?
No, we're not. So inflation... what we say is we want inflation. The goal is to have inflation move down to 2% on a sustainable basis. And, we're not really, we're close, but we're not really at 2%. And I think we're going to want to see it be, around 2% and close to 2% for some time. But we're certainly not we're not saying mission accomplished or anything like that. But I have to say, though, we're encouraged by the progress that we have made.
Well, yeah, تملأت نتهم consumers نتهم تتقمت جزاء تعدكتي سنتايتهم نزبل حتى inflation دا ناب كل 10% وريدو خمسة لنا جرام أنا قطبنا يس economy خابس بكم زلنا جرام labor market ونابس بكم زلنا جرام سعيبة إذا حتى تحطه أما فيكتوري مالت أبعاد تعويت نادى تبل no ياتي زبلا زلوا مهنياتو أنت إلو عن تبغى كل تنت بخلت إذا النمبر تنانا تارجتنا كل 10%. سلزي كمزي سلزلنا نابنا هنا the Fed's fund rate ناب نورمال كنورو دعنا أحوات نورمال كأنتاي كاب كل 2 cap between 2 and then 3 زلو number receive mostly Fed's fund rate مالتي ناب المراد مالتي so تا zero no مبالو not happy.
Hi, Katerina Saraiva with Bloomberg News. I just would love to know kind of how the committee is thinking about the persistence we've seen in housing inflation. Do you think you can return to 2% with housing inflation where it is? Yeah.
So,
don't pass this question. This by the way, كابز من كاتلهم زلنا Bloomberg News تصرح كاترينا دياز بلد yes yeah كاترينا right in here Bloomberg News good question حوات نخلهم جزا خنجز عدل زلنا أزياء so net inflation بزعبا جزا كندي الله 5.2% الله تزي تجاجي 5.1 or 5.2 لو ناي جزا inflation high الله سلازي inflation overall ناب كل 10% وريد الله تقول لها so نتم عدك جزا نتناي جزا سي انت كتب لنا دخل good question. Come on, Powell. We need good news always, good answer, whatever it is. Tell him that.
Housing inflation is the one piece that is kind of dragging a bit, if I can say. We know that market rents are doing what we would want them to do, which is to be moving up at relatively low levels, but they're not rolling over. The leases that are rolling over are not coming down as much, and OER is coming in high. So, it's been slower than we expected. I think we now understand that it's going to take some time for those lower market rents to get into this. But, the direction of travel is clear. And as long as market rents remain, relatively low inflation over time, that will show up. Just the time it's taking now, several years rather than just 1 or 2 cycles of annual lease renewals. So I think we understand that now, but I don't think the outcome is in doubt. Again, as long as market rents remain under control, the outcome is not in doubt. So I would say it's the rest of the portfolio or of the elements that go into core PCE inflation have behaved pretty well. They all have some volatility. We will get down to 2% inflation, I believe, and I believe that ultimately we'll get what we need to get out of the housing services piece too.
Some of your
all right, let me say that. Let me explain تجرينا نعين عندهم. Okay. صبوا مرسي موليس حوات أزي. بالتعمي أزي good. كمزي no كمزي وأيكوني نقلي أيبلن. أنت إلو مجمع مسيلكم. Yes, inflation نايجزانا about 5. ناي house about 5.1 or 0.2 لحوات. So ناي بلومبرج نيوز أنت إلى حتى أنت كتب لهم تخير ويكا كم يجرك كل 10% كباب ناس بحاس نايجزا هاي مهلاو. Yes, إتا حنت دراج جرها نازل علو. Yes, almost لعلي 34 or 44% نا inflation أنا جزاي. نساء هاي جرها نازل يرد عنيو. أنت إيجن moving to our lords. بقى تصبوا نجارس نابلوري خير زلوا. By the way, it's not. نعمل sorry نورح شوعتنا نورح شمانتن في الليل أنا حوات. أبجري أورح شمانتن هاي جزاء. So أتي positive قالجن يزار بالله حوات رأيو. نابلور قص إذا خيد زلوا جزء وسرينا جزاء مالك عمد كل تعمتي إذا بلا نازل really like أنوالي year or 2 years over time سي ناب تصبو recovery خير سلزلوا ناب down خير سلزلوا ناب كل 10% range 5 تصفال لنا يزلوا أنا هتسي النجارات ناس كل ساعة تايك أمم كخلتن 3% دعابك خير على ناي جزاء almost 5% يزلوا so تمارسوا تصبوي الساعة خاتها ستي كوين هنزل الحوات الساعة دا سواء inflation هاي زلوا مالت زل على percent يا خازلوا أنا جزاء مالت أسجرون باول ገዛ ትገዝኡ ገዛ ትካረዩ ስፔሻሊ ገዛ ክራይ ዘሎ still ናትኩም ብ5.1% is increase ዝገብር ዘሎ ሕዋት so yeah that's up to you decision ናትካ ወለድ ይቁንስ ኣለዎ ሕጂ ጀሚሮም ኣለዉ so እንታይ ኢኻ ክትገብር ዘለካ ፋይናንሻል ናትካ ጽቡቕ ድዩ ክሬዲት ስኮርካ ጽቡቕ ድዩ what you can do ሓበሻ ኤዱኬሽን እዚ ኩሉ ለይዳውና ንገብሮ ንምህሮ ኢና ኩሉ ነገርና ነዳልዎ ማለት እዩ ኩሉ ሻዕ ሕጂውን ድሕሪ ሕጂውን ሓበሻ ኤዱኬሽን 6 ፕሮግራም ንምህር ኢና ሓደ ማይክሮ ኢኮኖሚክስ እዚ ኩሉ ንሪኦ ዘለና ቁጠባና እንታይ መጽእ ኢንፍሌሽን አንኤምፕሎይመንት ሓደ ካልኣይ ነገር እንታይ ንምህር እንተልኩምኒ ቀፂልና ባጀት ንምህር ኣታዊኹም ብኸመይ ክዓቢ ይኽእል ንምህር ማለት እዩ ቁፅሪ 3 ኣብ ስታክ ማርኬት ከመይ ጌርካ ኢንቨስት ዝገብር ከዓ ንምህር ኢና how do you grow ምጽባሕ ንግሆ ናትካ ኢንቨስትመንት ዓብይ ይኾን ፖርቶፊልዮ ናትካ ሚልዮን 2 ሚልዮን ዝኸደሉ ቁፅሪ 4 እንታይ ንምህር ቁፅሪ 4 ከዓ ቢዝነስ ከመይ ጌርካ ትውን ትኽእል ስሞል ቢዝነስ ባጀት ስሞል ቢዝነስ ክብል ከለኹ maybe liquor store ድዩ ጋዝ ስቴሽን ድዩ ዋላ እንዳ ባርበሪ እንዳ ፀጉሪ መቁረፂ ድዩ ዝኾነ ስሞል ቢዝነስ ከመይ ጌርካ ትውንን ቁፅሪ መወዳእታ ቁፅሪ 6 እንተዘይተጋጊኻ እንታይ ንምህር ንሕና ነቲ ዝገበርናይ ዓይነት ኢንቨስትመንት how we protect that ኢንሹራንስ እንታይ መስል ኢንሹራንስ ናይ ላይፍ ኣይኮንኩም ዘለኹን ኢንሹራንስ ኣይኮንና ንሸይጥ ንሕና ኣሕዋት እንታይ ዳ ኢንሹራንስ ናይ መኪናኻ እንታይ ክትመስል ኣለዋ ሓደጋ መኪና እንድሕር ኣጋጢመካ ከመይ ክኸውን ኣሎ ኢንሹራንስ ናይ ገዛኻ እንታይ ክመስል ኣሎ ገዛኻ እንድሕር ተቓፂሉ ወይ እውን ወድኻ እንድሕር ዝኾነ ነገር ገይሩ ክንደይ ይኸውን ኢንሹራንስ ክፀንሐካ ኣለዎ ወይ እውን ካልእ እንድሕር ኣጋጢሙ ኢንሹራንስ ከምኡውን ናይ ገዛ ናይ መኪና ናይ ቢዝነስ እዚ ኩሉ ፍሪ ሰርቪስ እዩ ኣይንሸይጥ ኢና we are not selling ሓበሻ ኤዱኬሽን ማለት እዩ እዚ 6 ፕሮግራም ግን very breakdown ኢና ጌርና ነምጾ real estate I forget that real estate are strong ናህና ብትዛዓበየ እውን ብዛዕባ real estate ከመይ ጌርኩም ገዛ ክትገዝኡ ትኽእሉ ከመይ ጌርኩም ኮመርሻል ክትገዝኡ ትኽእሉ እዚ ከዓ ብምሉኡ ንምህሮ ኢና almost 6 ኣብዚ 6 እዩ ከዓ ብተመክሮ ኣለና ፖርቶፊልዮ ናህና እውን ንርኢ ኢና እንታይ ንገብር ንሕና እውን ንዕዘብ ኢና ብትምህርታዊ መንገዲ ጥራይ ኤዱኬሽንና ንገብር ማለት እዩ welcome join us ከባቢ 2 ፕሮግራም already ነጻፍፍ ኣለና ሕጂ so ናይ መዝገባ ሕጂ ክነዳሉ ኢና ከነምጽእ ኢና ተሓወስና ነዚ 6 ፕሮግራም ማስተር ክትገብሮ እንድሕር ደሊኹም ናይ መጻኢኹም ናይ ደቅኹም ኢንቨስትመንት እንታይ ክትገብሩ ትኽእሉ ንምህሮ ኢና እንታይ ዓይነት ክህልወካ ኣሎ 529 ክህልወካ ዘሎ ወላስ ካልእ ዓይነት ኢንቨስትመንት ኣሎ ንትምህርቶም ዝሕግዞም ብዙሕ ነገር ኣሎ thank you welcome join us ሓበሻ ኤዱኬሽን let's move forward
colleagues have expressed concern that with starting to cut rates, you could reignite demand in housing and see prices go up even more. You know, what's the likelihood of that, and how would you react to that?
Good question. Yes, حوات رأيوه. I was gonna close كأنه زحت زي مش هيجوركوا خير حسيب نرى. Already inflation already rate كات تجبر الله خيراته ولد already تقرص الله واجانا جزا هايك خيدي تقول الله كم يجي كاري أكتر تجبر أنت أخذ بلوم تخل look أحوات yes this guys Catherine is nailed that good question already in the rate مقرات جميرهم federalists نحنا جزا price نا هايك خيدي why supply يا أحوات إتي نحنا يبلنا قرب يلن demand دقن أنت خون هجي ولد كان دحر تقنيسو ولد دحر ناي جزا قنص هاللي خوينو أنت خون هجي جزا بالي هايك خيديو بزح باير كمتسي كجزء كبلكاي قريب كله هذا يبلكا we are short 4.5 مليون شورت لنا سلازي انت رياكت تقبر تخل ولا تقرص علىها ناي جزا برايس كا خوسخيو that's how the term works سلام انت خوسخي لها supply short سلازلنا حسرت سلام انت هايك خونيها demand هايك خوني سلك انت له جيروم باول كملسي I hope I see قان عمل سزيع
So the housing market, it's hard to game that out. The housing market is in part frozen because of lock-in with low rates. People don't want to sell their home. So because they have a very low mortgage, it'd be quite expensive to refinance. As rates come down, people will start to move more, and that's probably beginning to happen already. But remember, when that happens, you've got a seller, but you've also got a new buyer in many cases. So it's not, obvious how much additional demand that
cannot answer.
The real issue with housing is that we have had and are on track to continue to have not enough housing. And so it's going to be challenging. It's hard to find, to zone lots that are in places where people want to live. It's all of the aspects of housing are more and more difficult. And, where are we going to get the supply? And this is not something that the Fed can really fix. But I think as we normalize rates, you'll see the housing market normalize. And I mean, ultimately, by getting inflation broadly down and getting those rates normalized and getting the housing cycle normalized, that's the best thing we can do for householders. And then the supply question will have to be dealt with by the market and also by government.
Yes, he cannot answer. كمل سايكل إني حوات كمل سايكل إني قلنا عنا تصبق view point هي بهنا لا that's great. انتهى إلو مسيلكم يا رئينا already أبز حلفة ولدنا وكا rate nice 30 years nice 3 عامات كاب شمنت person ناب شدش person وريديو already حزب move يقبر له يجزع له refinance يقبر له يجزع له نوري لنا إلو قلنا إحنا we have challenge لنا أبز الشجرة لنا حدا مجمرة فدرال ولا حنت نقبرين خلينا تشورتت وكا تحسرتنا جزاو تزلو we cannot do nothing بزلو he's right federal is not going to do nothing أبزي مالي تايرا government يخبر زلو that's why كمال هارس كتمت أنت مريت كمني 3 مليون جزاء سريحة بلنا على who knows سخلو نايتي بمولو إحوات كونغرس كحلفوا له whatever it is let's see still we are short 4.5 it's 3 مليون تبلا زلا كمان within 4 years كلا أنا أزر تدرب له مخنيات انتاي population growth إحوات population حزبي يعبي زلونا أمريكا زخل immigrant متي زلو almost 15-16 millions ترامب ولا خسقوا انت بلا كمال هارس متي ولا انت سرحتون still ذا 14-15 مليون ألبو still challenge لنا نايجز أبلالو حسرت لنا شورتينا زلنا جن من قصة من لسه نحنا يكوننا نحنا خنق على سنخيل انتاي دا نري لنا already كمتسيو انتاي نحن قبر نخيلو بس على مثلا overall inflation نابكل تبرسن كنا ورد راح ينزل he's out he said I don't do nothing بلنا that's right Jerome Powell you don't do nothing but thank you that's a good one so إحوات this is how جزء زي جزء كوني جزء أنا مجزء plan زلوا كوني this is our economy looks like مالتي thank you
Victoria. Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Just following up on some of the labor market talk earlier, you know, monetary policy operates with long and variable lags. And I'm wondering how much you see being able to keep the unemployment rate from raising too much comes from the fact that you're starting to act now, and that's going to give people more room to run versus just the labor market is strong. And then also, if I could, following up on Nick's question, do you see today's 50 basis point move as partially a response to the fact that you didn't cut in July, and that sort of gets you to the same place?
So you're right about lags, but I would just point to the overall economy. You have an economy that is growing at a solid pace. If you look at forecasters or talk to companies, they'll say that they think 2025 should be a good year too. So there's no sense that the U.S. economy is basically fine. If you talk to market participants, I mean, you know, business people who are actually out there doing business. So I think, you know, I think our move is timely. I do, and as I said, you can see our 50 basis point move as a commitment to make sure that we don't fall behind. So you're really asking about your second question. You're asking about July, and I guess if you ask, you know, if we'd gotten the July report before the meeting, would we have cut? We might well have. We didn't make that decision, but you know, we might well have. I think that's not, you know, that doesn't
come on, drop out. Skip that.
Really answer the question that we ask ourselves, which is let's look. You know, when at this meeting we're looking back to the July employment report, the August employment report, the 2 CPI reports, one of which came, of course, during blackout, and all of the other things.
We need pictures, Jerome Powell. Already July سلامتاي زي قرصكم ما يكون زي قد سنة هجي أنت أخذ تقبرها ولا تحطون هجي أنت خونه له مثلك. We don't need بتاع بعض حلفة already. أي قرص أن أي بلند that's okay. We don't need that. تهر كنسم عند لنا. This is كابي مثلكم. نزمت أنت إنا هرين. So أبزيك حتى والله متحطه دس بلك. This funny question هاي تاتو. أبزي نزمت أنت حت قبر زلها. Already إنسو أي قبرن حلف. زي أخبي مثلكم ديبيتنا كمال هاريس and ترامب نبر حد يجزء بقدام عايز نبر مالتي أنت أبزتات أنت عايز بنير مثلكم mostly ناي ترامب oh no كم زيجركم أبو بزح نجر نيرو أبو detail أتيخ زارب عيدلن جن أنت هاي مثلكم no نزي إيكونومينا down جركم سالسة كونات عالم مسرات جركم 5 مسرات جركم ناو بلان جركم our economy is down immigrant illegal immigrant ملكم so how نحنا أمريكا زد لي هذا الله البريزيدنت كمان ترامب انت اذا اللي هذا ماتي خاص انت كتقبر تخل alright whatever it is mesner what we can do كتمص تخلها بسنكزي مقباركم انا زخ قبري بسنكزي مقباركم ازخ قبري ازي عينات تحطوا نبي عمليات النابطه ترامب عمليات النحوات as never I don't like that I don't know, most probably Trump was pro Powell. نخملو سوزخون حتتات she Kamala Harris she keep asking me like asking a question بزح حتتات حتى نيرا مالتي so جخا forget it, come back, what is the next now?
That I mentioned, we're looking at all of those things and we're asking ourselves, what's the policy stance we need to move to? It's clear that we clearly, literally everyone on the committee agreed that it's time to move. It's just how fast do you go and what do you think about the path forward? So this decision we made today had broad support on the committee, and I've discussed the path ahead.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Elizabeth Schulze with ABC News. Mortgage rates have already been dropping in anticipation of this announcement. How much more should borrowers expect those rates to drop over the next year?
Yeah, good question from ABC News. Like, good question. Mortgage rate already down coin لحوات إلنا. Mortgage rate already down coin لنا almost 6.11. Even لو ما عندهم down coin بزن طبق report مالتي almost 5 maybe كن رأينا غلنا صباح 5.99 whatever it is دحين. So أمودات عامة mortgage rate سي كندي تتصبر لخيات ولا زلا. كاب شمنتا ناب شدش ورينا لنا أمودات از عامة زي وكا أبزي كامينيرس انتاي كتصبر دخل. Important about housing, guys. Let's see what he's gonna say. Tyler comes in the second Romina. Oh, Tenhanas Gobro, Nati Quanan, indirect. Let's see what he said.
Very hard for me to say. That's from our
I know. He said that very hard to say. He's right. We are doing a first fund rate حوات انت is مسلكم not to right our within I wish the 24 ساعات connections اللي إذا بدل. So to connection to institution them تعالون نعو بحسر مسرخبة تنابها transfers جبرو كال وعيو. That is direct is always كونن. طيب نابنت تقول لهم 10 years yield is up 3.7. is it up مهنها نحنا ولدنا تخوني up خوني generally. So very hard to answer that question. I was right and then he's right too. Let's see what he's saying.
Standpoint, I can't really speak to mortgage rates. I will say,
that's not him.
You know, that will depend on how the economy evolves. Our intention, though, is we think that our policy was appropriately restrictive. We think that it's time to begin the process of recalibrating it to a level that's more neutral rather than restrictive. We expect that process to take some time. As you can see in the projections that we released today. And as if things work out according to that forecast, other rates in the economy will come down as well. However, the rate at which those things happen will really depend on how the economy performs. We can't look a year ahead and know what the economy is going to be doing.
What's your message to households who are frustrated that home prices have still stayed so high as rates have been high? What do you say to those households?
Well, what I can say to the public is that we had a burst of inflation.
كدغم لكم احوات انت على حتى انت ملفتنتهم نهزبي تنغرو mortgage rate high low and then نايغزا price high low. Yeah, we know that inflation high ገይሮ كل ነገር high ገይሮ ማለት انت ملفتلهم ወቃ ተብሎም እንዲያዝላ. Let's see what he's going to say, his message.
Many other countries around the world had a similar burst of inflation. And when that happens, part of the answer is that we raise interest rates in order to cool the economy off, in order to reduce inflationary pressures. It's not something that people experience as pleasant, but at the end, what you get is low inflation restored, price stability restored. And a good definition of price stability is that people in their daily decisions, they're not thinking about inflation anymore. That's where everyone wants to be, is back to what's inflation. You know, we just keep it low, keep it stable. We're restoring that. So what we're going through now really it restores, it will benefit people over a long period of time. Price stability benefits everybody over a long period of time just by virtue of the fact that they don't have to deal with inflation. So that's what's been going on. And I think we've made real progress. We don't tell people how to think about the economy, of course. And of course, people are experiencing high prices as opposed to high inflation. And we understand that's painful.
Yeah, nothing. مالت إحوات بزعبة mortgage بزعبة زيتات كملوسة زي كده. Yes, high inflation يرنا high mortgage صنيحنا له and then sorry እንደገና ሃይ ፕራይስ አለ ነው we going to say sorry ጥራሕ ዝብሎ ነቲ በቃ ኢንፍሌሽን ኣብ ኩሉ ዓለም እዩ ኣባና ጥራሕ ኢኮኖሚ ዝብ ዘሎ so that's how it is virus it's not going to change so it was አንተ ወው ገሊጽና ያኔርና ንሓት
Hi, Chair Powell. Greg Robb from MarketWatch.com. I was wondering if you could go through, you said just at the beginning that coming into the blackout, there was like an open thought of 25 or 50. You know, the Fed could move either 25 or 50. I would sort of argue that when we had those two last speeches by Governor Waller and New York Fed President John Williams, that they were sort of saying that maybe a gradual approach was going to win the day. I mean, I'd sort of want to ask a 7-part question about this, but I mean, could you talk, would you have cut rates by 50 basis points if the market had been pricing in like low odds of a 50-point move like they were last Wednesday? You know, after the CPI number came out, it was a really small probability of a 50-point cut. Does that play in your consideration at all? Just talk a little bit about that. Thank you.
This is this guy is questioning him. Nimatsai, I like it. كل شيء feature. So do you consider? I know rates ناسي 0.25 كهون ده ويخل ويكا 0.5 rate كنقرص نخلنا إلي حليفوا 0.5 ويكا 0.5 رو consider تقبلوا نزمة rate cut. What can you tell us كبلوي? So Jerome Powell, I know data لنا وصيت لنا unemployment rate especially كل شيء ناي كلت report لنا حواتنا ورح تشعتنا ورح عسرتن. So انتايك ملش Jerome Powell. Is this going to be bullish in the market? Let's see what happens. قال حوات ماركتنا ريت كوني خليه هجي مهنيات بزوج جيروم باول ذهبان نازله بزح سيل كوني خليه بزح سيل انت كوني خليهم كل شعتهم عبيتي تم انفسترز تم ميليونرات نابت هجي نابت ريت سنسيتيف سخوني ناب ريت سنسيتيف بلا له نابنت ناب بانكي ناب قلي جنزبهم مفك قبرو خليهم كابت حدا شيء ام نابتي خلي خليهم حوات بزعبو انتاي ماركتنا داون كقبرو يخل فيديو سريحنا نرنا بزح انتشن almost شحب هزب طرح يمري امه so رأيوا نمنتاينا نزلنا why نزبل حتو هجي نابتن ريت سنسيتيف بانك نابنت ناي مورجج زلوا كامبانيتا هاي خوني right نابو السمور like كعبي خليو investors ገንዘቦም ካብዚ ካብ ሓደ ዘሎ ካብ ሴቭ ዘሎ ናብኡ ዓይነት aggressive ክኾኑ ይኽእሉ እዮም ናብ ዓይነት like risk ዘለዎ ነገር ሙቭ ክገብሩ ይኽእሉ እዮም our stock market could be red ምክንያቱ sell off ክመፅእ ይኽእል እዩ ፕሮፊት ኣውፂኻ ናብቲ ካልእ ናይ ሬት ተጉድሉ ስለ ዘለዎ ንዕኡ ምስ ፅልዋ ዝነበሮ ባንክታት ደን ካልእ ንዕን ኢንቨስት ትገብር ማለት እዩ ስዑ ምክንያቱ ንሰን ዳብል ኤንድ ትሪፕል እየን ዝዓብያ ንሳተን ሶ እዚኦም ግን ቶም ትሬድ ዝገብሩ እቶም ክኢላታትና ዘለና ከም ሓበሻ ኤዱኬሽን እዚ ኣይንምህረና እዚኦም ከነሕልፎ ኣይንደልና ንሕና ስቴዲ ኢንቨስት ኢና ንኽእል ETF ክበሩ ግሮዝ ስታክ ክበሩ እንደገና ላይክ ኢንዴክስ ክበሩ ኣብዚአን ኢና ንምህር እዚአን ጥራሕና ንሕና ተኣሽሙ ንገብሩ እቲ ኣግሬሲቭ ክኸውን ይኽእል ሜይቢ ኣብኡ ሙቭ እንድሕር ገይሮም ለሰይ ማርኬትና ሬድ እንድሕር ኮይኑ ካብኡ ከዓ ሸይጦሞ ክመፁ ኣለዎ ናብዚ ታይም ቴልስ ክፈልጥዎ መዓስ ከዓ ሙቭ ገብሩ ማለት they know this ኩሉ እዚ ንብሎ ዘለና ማይክሮ ኢኮኖሚክስ ከም ዝኽገብር ዝኽእል ሰብ እንድሕር ኣልዩ you are welcome to do that ማለት thank you so Jerome Powell እንታይ ይኽብለና ነዛ መልሲ እዚኣ ንስማዕ እያ
We're always going to try to do what we think is the right thing for the economy at that time. That's what we'll do. And that's what we did today.
በቃ መልሱ ሲ እቲ ዝመጽእ ሲ ራይቲንግ ነቲ ኢኮኖሚ ጥራሕና ክንገብሮ እዩ ዝብለና ዘሎ ሂዝ ራይት ምክንያቱ እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ ቴክኒካል እንታይ እዩ ዝገልጸልና ዘሎስ ዝህበና ሪፖርት ዝህበና ቁጠባ ሪፖርት ዝህበና ዝመጽእ ውፅኢት ሲ ክነግረና እዩ እንታይ ኣበየለና ኣበይ ንኸይድ ማለት እዩ እንድሕር CPI ሃይ ኮይኑ ኣይቆርፅን ክኾኑ ይኽእሉ እዮም እንድሕር አንኤምፕሎይመንት ኣዝዩ ሎው ኮይኑ ዘይቆርፅ ይኽእሉ እዮም CPI ኣዝዩ ሎው እንድሕር ኮይኑ እቲ ሪፖርትና ህና ማለት እዩ እንደገና አንኤምፕሎይመንት ከዓ እንታይ ሃይ እንድሕር ኮይኑ ክቆርፅ ይኽእሉ እዮም 0.25 ኣይኮነን 0.75 ክቆርፅ ይኽእሉ እዮም ዋላ ብ1% ክቆርፅ ይኽእሉ እዮም ማለት እዩ ማርኬት ቴለስ ኣዝ ይብሎ ዘሎ ዝመፅእ ክነግረና እዩ ብዛዕባኡ that's good one
Simon. Thank you, Chair Powell. Simon Rabinovich with The Economist. You've mentioned how closely you're watching the labor market, but you also noted that payroll numbers have been a little bit less reliable lately because of the big downward revisions. Does that put your focus overwhelmingly on the unemployment rate? And given the SEP projection of 4.4 basically being the peak in the cycle, would going above that be the kind of thing that would trigger another 50 basis point cut?
So we will continue to look at that broad array of labor market data, including the payroll numbers. We're not discarding those. I mean, we'll certainly look at those, but we will mentally tend to adjust them based on the QCEW adjustment, which you referred to. There isn't a bright line. It will be, the unemployment rate's very important, of course, but there isn't a single statistic or a single bright line over which that might move that would dictate one thing or another. We'll look at each meeting. We'll look at all the data on inflation, economic activity.
All right, Ahwat, I got to stop this on sharing. We got a good report. It was lovely, and then I have to go. As the don't get I have to go. ምናልባት ሳመር ክገብሮ ፍትነ ድሓን ግን overall is good report ጽቡቕ ዝኾነ report ኢና ረኺብና ዘለና ብ0.5 ማለት ሕቶ ቀጻሊ እዩ almost 27 ንሕና ብናብ ምቕያርና ብቲ ቋንቋና ብዙሕ መግለፂ ይገብረሉ ስለ ፀናሕኩ ቁሩብ ደንቢና ኣለና ንሶም already ወዲኦም እዮም. So market is this. It's going to be good. كم يعني تبص sell off كم تسيخلي مش تأخذ تسيخلي أقام زبالة يكونن جن overall 0.5 rate تقاريسو أنا expected it was high. كلنا ندلي نبرنايو. So جزاء يخون كالي يخون بزح جلسنا هنا أنا نرزل نحواتنا first fund rate نشتشر قبل لكم if my computer عند حر أفكيرات اللي مالتي. We are speaking yeah I think so أفكيرات اللي على. زين نرزل نحوات. This is the one is this. انت اذا لنا هجي 5.33 لنا مالتي let's see refresh قبل منالبات اوصيمنا يوصون still يوصون نايلهم معنت مالتي كوصي زي ناب almost تحتي حموش تخدريو لهم so usually نحنا ماركتنا راينز قبل فيرست فاند ريت ندحرينا تريو لهم كاب نوفمبر 2008 رايوا دا اروناتي كاب نوفمبر 2008 كاب زي زيروسي almost 0.39 انداخل اذا قصل نيرو اب كلتا شحن almost كلتا شحن 10 شعتن 2.4 نيرو دحرو ناب مارش زخونه اب كلتا شحن 20 كان اب 0.8 فيرست فاند ريت ان افريج امونغو انت هاين دحر كيرم كلتا percent اذا خيد مالتي سو هيسترنا ازي مس جموري اون هلكم هاي እንዳገበሮ ኣብዚ በጽሕና ዘለና ሀጂ እዚ ክቁረጽ ኣሎ ዳውን ክሆን ኣሎ ኣብዚ ካብ 2008 ጀሚርካሲ ኣብዚ ኢና ዘለና ሶ ፈርስት ፋንድ ሬት እንድሕር እዚ ዳውን ኮይኑ ናብ 0 ዲ ናብ 0 ገለ ዲ ናብ 1% ዳውን እንድሕር ከይዱ ሞርጌጅና ናይ ገዛና ናይ ገለና ክንደይ ክኸውን ይሽዑ 3% so we need that 3% ምክንያቱ ፈርስት ፋንድ ሬት እንድሕር ዘልዩ ማለት እዚኣ ታመስርሕ ነዚኣ ኢና ንቀይር ዘላ እዚኣ ካታ most important ንማርኬትና ትቀይሮ እዚኣ ንኣብነት ኣነ ተወለድ ኩሉ ግዜ ሽሕን 1981 18.52 ነይሩ right ፈርስት ፋንድ ሬትን 18.59 ተነይሩ for sure rate ክንደይ ነይሩ ሽዑ መሲልኩም 20 ገለ ንሓደ ገዛ ክትገዝእ እዚ no more ከምዚ ዝበሃል ህጂ የለን ተቀይሩ ነገራትና ቀይርና ኢና ናብ كاكلتا شحن شمونتن كل نجار أيوة 1.7 فر 1 قلة so the data is هبنا مالك if this market good مالك صبوا عند حركين as of today what it looks like in the هنا let me go with that and stop جبرازيا as of today okay stop sharing as of today انتهينا نرزلنا okay right عبينا أخري إن خالزي نعنا زجد سنة كم يجرك easy money مسي easy money ها لون نوحد مالك I think صبوا كله جبرا مثلاً تولد نموحات alright as of today عند حرشك نقبر كوينا rate update لنا search عند حرجرنا حواتها بزي كمبيوتر كتم تصلوا okay rate update عند حر له search جره alright let's good I hope it's gonna give me something كمبيوتر رسينا I know I got some recommendation إذا كمبيوتر زي أصبحت كونتن زي هذا عينة تجزأ تباهيلن ده اللون نوت على النبزي all this report come on search حساب قبرنا بزين خد alright what it looks like نهلكم marketنا so far صبوا إزولو it's not بزح change أيرانان yeah well there is some changes but outside the rate card yeah like it's gonna be turn off rates after like outside the مقبارو yeah it's gonna be it happens no worry about it مخنياتو انت يخون إزولو Jerome Powell's central bank decision to go to be big with the first cards so it is who was never a gala mercy is not happy مالتيو so እዚ ግን ኣብ ክኸውን ይፀገም ኣይኮነሽ ሴል መፂሎ ሴል ኣሎ ማለት ከም ዛዝበልና ዓንተቦ ሴል ተራኢሎ so I just want to see that is all right I want to see damn it come here give me this all right I don't know why it's not giving all right how about semi-fit what is it going to give me yeah almost as much in halakum 0.25 as of today marketna as much in November 7 ማለት እዩ 0.25 rate ቆም ዝቆርጹ 65% ኤርኤና ኣሎ ማለት እዩ so ንሕና ከ እንታይ ኢና እንደሊ ናብዚ ገጽ ክወርድ 50% that's okay ከምወይ አንተ በዝወልኮ why market ready sell off ስለዘጋጠመ ይኻላ አይኮንን ህዋት ግን be back up don't worry about it oh come up so this is how it tells us ማለት እዩ ዝመጽእ መስከረም sorry ዝመጽእ ወርሒ 11 ኖቨምበር 0.25 rate ከም ዝቆርጹ 65% ይነግረና ኣሎ ሃባ December is going to be the same up December ka yeah December is going to be what 49.5% rate na 4% to 4.5 according لمعنت report زي انا رخبنا زلنا if I got the rate update ابيكم كترئوا تقولوا انتهى صريحه اللي let me back again all right that's all I think so it's not gonna give me anything all right what sorry so here you go guys we did it good ንምጥቅላል ኢኮኖሚና ጽቡቅ ከም ዘላና GDP ና hana ጽቡቅ ከም ዝመስል ዘሎ almost 2.1 grow ከም ዝገብር at the end of the year still ልዕሉ ኸውን ይኽእል እዩ ምክንያቱ according Atlanta Fed 3% ከዓቢ ይብለና ኣሎ Q3 ወሰንት ግን ወርሕ 10 ወሳኒና ናፋት ወርሕ 10 ኩለንተን ኢኮኖሚ ኩለንተን ካምፓኒታት ናተን ኣታዊታት ወይ earnings ዝነግራና ግዜ እዩ ስለዚህ ንሳተን እንድሕር earning ናተን ጽቡቅ መጽዩ ዳ ምንስ we have a good report ማለት እዩ sontaina hri soft landing ኮይኑ recession ካይራና ክንከይድ ንኽእል ኢና ኮይኑ ግን ንሳተን ሕማቅ እንድሕር መጽዩ እንድሕር ሰራሕተኛ ክሰጋ ፈቲነን recession ከጋጥም ይኽእል እዩ Fed fund rate ka ክመጽዮም ኣይኮነን 0.25 1% 2% rate ካትገብሪዮ ማለት እዩ ወራ 10 ክትነግረና እዚኣ ኻ ማለት እዩ ክሳብ ሽዑ ኣብ ዘሎ መንጎ ሪፖርት ዝህበና ሪፖርት እንዳንበብና ክንከይድና thank you so much ንኽልተ ሰዓት ያብ ጸኒሐ I have to go to work and thank you good luck ahwat welcome this is the time action ደለካ ኣብ ሰዓት እዩ ስለዚህ special soft land ድሕር መጽዩ that's your time to do an action ማለት ናይ ገዛ ሰሚዕኩም ኣኹም ታይሉት ጅሮም ፓውል ተዛሪ ማለት all right love you all and thank you and the Habesha education is instead of that of the other education with the payment okay I cannot ብዙሓት ኮመንት ኣሎ